The first thing I noticed was the smell. Lavender. Cheap lavender air freshener. The kind they spray in dorm hallways to cover up the smell of stale beer and regret. I hadn't smelled that in 2 years. Not since they moved me to the women's minimum security facility in Connecticut while they figured out what to do with me. I opened my eyes. White ceiling tiles. Fluorescent light. A pile of dirty laundry in the corner that I definitely recognized. My old sorority sweatshirt. The one with the hole in the sleeve. The one I swore I lost freshman year. My heart stopped. I sat up so fast my vision went black at the edges. The room spun. I gripped the edge of my bed. My old bed. The twin XL with the faded floral comforter. The one I left behind when everything fell apart. And I waited for the world to settle. No, this wasn't possible. I looked at my phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up when I touched it. September 12th. 7:42 p.m. The date stared back at me like a dare. September 12th. 2 years ago. I was back. My hands were shaking. I held them in front of my face and turned them over like I'd never seen them before. No scars. No calluses from the factory job they gave me in work release. Just my hands. Young hands. Soft hands. Hands that hadn't spent 2 years gripping the edge of a metal table in a prison visitation room. Celeste, you need to calm down. I closed my eyes and breathed. In through my nose. Out through my mouth. Count to 4. Count to 8. The panic receded. Just enough for me to think. I remembered everything. Every detail. Every humiliation. Every time I told myself he loved me. He just had a temper. He just needed someone to understand him. Liam Montgomery. Blue eyes. Sandy hair. Jawline sharp enough to cut glass. Captain of the lacrosse team. Politics major with a trust fund and a future his father paid for in cash. The kind of boy your mother warned you about. Not because he was dangerous, but because he was perfect. And perfect things were always hiding something. I met him at a party. He bought me a drink. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never felt before. Like I was the only girl in a room full of 200 people. He told me I was special. He told me I was different. He told me all the things I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. And then he started telling me I was lucky to have him. The first time he hit me, I was 20 years old. We'd been together for 6 months. I said something about Tinsley Montgomery, his ex, his friend, the girl he swore I didn't need to worry about. I don't even remember what I said. Something small, something stupid. But his face changed, and his hand came up. And suddenly I was on the floor with blood in my mouth and a ringing in my ears that didn't stop for 3 days. He cried afterward. He held me and told me he was sorry. He loved me so much. He just lost control. It would never happen again. It happened again. 47 times over the next 18 months. I kept count in a notebook I hid under my mattress. The same notebook I used to write down all the things I'd never say out loud. In the original timeline. I stayed. I stayed until he put me in the hospital for the 3rd time. I stayed until Tinsley convinced him to deal with me permanently. And by that I mean permanently. I stayed until the police showed up at his father's lake house and found me locked in the basement. My face so swollen I couldn't speak. My left arm broken in 2 places. They arrested him. They arrested her. But by then, I was so broken I couldn't even look at a jury without having a panic attack. The prosecutor said I was a sympathetic witness. What she meant was I was pathetic. I was a mess. I cried on the stand and the defense attorney ate me alive. Liam got 25 years. Tinsley got 12. I watched them lead him away in handcuffs and felt nothing. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just emptiness. And then I went to prison anyway. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I couldn't stop calling him. I couldn't stop writing him letters. I couldn't stop showing up at the visitation center every Saturday, begging the guards to let me see him, telling myself he still loved me. telling myself I could fix him. They charged me with witness tampering. They said I tried to convince him to change his story. They were right. I did. Because I was sick. Because I was broken. Because Liam Montgomery had spent 2 years teaching me that I was nothing without him. And somewhere along the way, I'd started believing it. 18 months in minimum security. Group therapy. A lot of staring at walls and wondering how I got there. And now I was back. September 12th. 2 years before any of it happened. 2 years before the basement. Before the handcuffs. Before I threw away my life for a boy who never loved me. My phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen. A text message from a number I hadn't seen in years. A number I'd blocked and unblocked 100 times. A number I'd memorized despite every therapist telling me to let it go. Liam. Hey babe. Meet me at the lot in 20. Tinsley's having a meltdown again. You know how she gets. I stared at the words until my eyes blurred. You know how she gets. Yeah. I knew exactly how she got. Tinsley Montgomery. Campus royalty. Silver. Spoon heiress. The girl who cried wolf for sport. She was beautiful and cruel and bored. And she loved nothing more than watching Liam put me in my place. In the original timeline, she was the one who whispered in his ear. Who encouraged his temper. Who laughed when he left bruises. She was also the one who stood in front of a jury and swore I'd tried to blackmail them both. I remembered that. I remembered her pretty face twisted into a mask of righteous indignation, pointing at me from the witness stand, telling the court that I was unstable, that I'd made it all up, that Liam was a victim of my obsession. The jury didn't believe her, but they believed her enough to give her a lighter sentence. 12 years instead of 20. She'd be out in 7 if she behaved herself. I looked at the text again. Meet me at the lot. The lot was a gravel parking lot behind the old science building. The one they'd condemned after the asbestos thing. No cameras. No witnesses. Just Liam. Tinsley. And whatever humiliation they had planned for me. In the original timeline. I went. I walked right into it like a lamb to slaughter. I let Liam put his hands on me. I let Tinsley laugh. I let them both convince me that I deserved it. And then I went home and cried myself to sleep and showed up at Liam's door the next morning with a peace offering and a black eye. Not this time. My hands were still shaking. But not from fear. From rage. Pure. Cold. Righteous rage that burned through my chest like a shot of whiskey. I had 2 years of knowledge. 2 years of memories. I knew every text he'd ever send me. Every lie he'd ever tell. Every manipulation he'd ever used to keep me in line. I knew where he hid his stash of Adderall. I knew about the girl he cheated on me with last spring break. The one he swore was just a friend. I knew about the offshore account his father set up for him. The one the prosecution found during discovery. The one that turned a simple assault case into a federal money laundering investigation. I knew everything. And I knew exactly how to use it. I got out of bed. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror on the back of the door. Same dark skin. Same sharp cheekbones. Same tired eyes that always looked older than the rest of my face. But there was something different now. Something hard. Something that hadn't been there before. You're not that girl anymore. I told myself. You're never going to be that girl again. I dressed quickly. Jeans. A hoodie. The same sneakers I'd been wearing the first time I walked into the lot and let Liam Montgomery ruin my life. But tonight, I wasn't walking in empty-handed. I reached into my backpack and pulled out my old phone. The one I'd replaced after the arrest. The one that still had all the old texts. All the old photos. All the old recordings I'd made of Liam screaming at me in the middle of the night. In the original timeline. I'd deleted everything. I'd been so desperate to keep him. So terrified of losing him. That I'd erased the evidence of his cruelty like it never happened. Not this time. I powered on the phone. It still worked. I scrolled through the messages. Through the voicemails. Through the photos I'd taken of my own bruises and told myself I'd never show anyone. And then I opened the recording app. I pressed record. I tucked the phone into my jacket pocket. The microphone pointed outward. The screen dark. Just in case. I told myself. Just in case he does something stupid. But I knew he would. Liam Montgomery was nothing if not predictable. He'd hurt me tonight. He'd put his hands on me. He'd leave marks. And I'd let him. I'd let him because I needed the evidence. I needed the proof. I needed something that no jury could ignore. Something that would make every excuse and every lie and every pretty apology sound exactly like what they were. Bullshit. The walk to the lot took 10 minutes. Campus was quiet. Thursday night. Most people were either at the library or the frat houses. And the path between the dorms and the condemned science building was empty. Streetlights flickered overhead. The air smelled like fall. Like wet leaves and wood smoke and the kind of cold that creeps into your bones and stays there. I could see them before I reached the gravel. Liam leaned against his car. A black Range Rover his father bought him for his 18th birthday. The same car he'd been driving when he ran a red light and killed a pedestrian in the original timeline. The accident happened 6 months from now. He'd been drunk. He'd fled the scene. His father paid off the witnesses, and the case never went to trial. I knew that too. Tinsley stood next to him, her back against the driver's side door. Her arms crossed over her chest. She was wearing a white cashmere sweater and jeans that probably cost more than my monthly tuition. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her lips were painted red. She looked like a snake in designer clothing. There she is, Liam said as I walked into the light. His voice was warm, affectionate, the voice of a boy who'd never hurt anyone in his life. Hey, babe. Thanks for coming. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to be heard on the recording, far enough to see both of their faces. You said Tinsley needed me. Tinsley laughed. It was a bright, musical sound, the kind of laugh that belonged in a shampoo commercial. I do need you, Celeste. I need you to stop texting Liam every 5 minutes like a desperate little puppy. It's embarrassing. I don't text him every 5 minutes. Please. She rolled her eyes. He showed me your messages. Miss you. Baby. Can't wait to see you. Baby. Are you mad at me? Baby. She mimicked my voice in a high, mocking pitch. It's pathetic. Like. Have some self-respect. Liam didn't say anything. He just watched me, his head tilted to the side, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips, waiting to see how I'd react. In the original timeline, I'd cried. I'd apologized. I'd promised to do better, to be less needy, to give him space. I'd groveled at their feet like a dog begging for scraps. This time, I just looked at Tinsley and said, "Why do you care?" Her smile flickered. "Excuse me. Why do you care how often I text my boyfriend? Seems like a weird thing to be obsessed with unless you're jealous." The air changed. I felt it shift. Felt the temperature drop. Felt the tension coil around us like a snake about to strike. Liam straightened up. "Celeste, that's not how you talk to Tinsley." "Sorry," I said. And I made my voice soft. Made my eyes go wide and innocent. I didn't mean to be rude. I just don't understand why she's always so involved in our relationship. Because she's my friend, Liam said. And she's looking out for me. Looking out for you how? Tinsley stepped forward. She was taller than me. 5'8" to my 5'4". And she used every inch of it to loom over me like she was about to deliver a verdict. "I'm looking out for him because you're unstable. Celeste. Everyone knows it. The way you cling to him. The way you freak out when he doesn't answer your texts. The way you cry every time he tries to hang out with his actual friends." She smiled. "It's textbook. You need help." I didn't react. I'd heard this before. Every word. Every inflection. Every carefully crafted insult designed to make me feel small and crazy and desperate. In the original timeline, I'd believed her. I'd gone home that night and typed how to stop being so needy into Google and read articles for 3 hours while Liam ignored my calls. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Maybe you're right, I said. Maybe I am unstable. But at least I'm not sleeping with my best friend's boyfriend. Tinsley went white. Liam's smile disappeared. What did you say? I shrugged. I said maybe I'm unstable. But at least. I heard what you said. He pushed off the car and took a step toward me. His jaw was tight. His hands were clenched at his sides. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I kept my voice calm. It means I know about spring break. I know about the hotel room. I know about the text messages you thought you deleted. I looked past him, at Tinsley's frozen face. I know everything. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. Then Tinsley laughed. It was different this time. Higher. Tighter. Forced. You're insane. You know that. Completely insane. He showed me everything from spring break. We texted the whole time. There's nothing to know because nothing happened. I didn't say anything happened. I said, I just said you're sleeping with him. But if nothing happened, then I guess you have nothing to worry about. Liam grabbed my arm. His fingers dug into my bicep. Hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to leave marks. I felt the pressure. Felt the pain. Felt the familiar spike of fear that used to make me freeze. But I didn't freeze. I looked down at his hand on my arm. Then I looked up at his face. Let go of me, I said quietly. Not until you apologize. Apologize for what? For embarrassing her. He jerked his head toward Tinsley, who was standing there with her arms wrapped around herself, her eyes bright with something that might have been fear or might have been anticipation. You know what you have to do. Celeste. What's that? Liam. He let go of my arm. For a second. I thought maybe he'd come to his senses. Maybe the knowledge of my recording phone had somehow wormed its way into his subconscious and made him hesitate. Then he grabbed my chin. His fingers pressed into my jaw, forcing my face up, forcing me to meet his eyes. Up close. I could see the anger in them. Not the hot, explosive rage he sometimes showed, but something colder. Something calculated. You let me show her you're sorry, he said. You let me show her you know your place. I had a choice. I could walk away. I could pull out my phone. Show him the recording. Threaten him with the police. I could end this before it started. Before he put his hands on me. Before the bruises formed and the bones broke and the hospital bills piled up. But if I did that, I'd have nothing. Just a recording of him being an asshole. Which wasn't a crime. Just a story about a girl who got scared and ran. Which wasn't evidence. I needed more. I needed him to hit me. Do it. I told myself. Let him hit you. Let him leave marks. Let him give you everything you need to put him away forever. Okay, I whispered. Liam smiled. Good girl. He drew back his hand. The slap came out of nowhere. His palm connected with my cheekbone. My left side. The same side he'd fractured in the original timeline. The same side that had required surgery and months of physical therapy and a scar that never quite faded. My head snapped sideways. Pain exploded across my face. Hot and sharp and immediate. I tasted blood. My ear rang. I didn't cry out. I didn't fall. I turned back to face him. Slow and deliberate. And I spat a mouthful of blood onto the gravel between us. Do it again, I said. Liam blinked. He looked confused, almost alarmed. Like he'd expected me to crumble and I hadn't. Like the script had changed and he didn't know his lines anymore. Behind him, Tinsley giggled. She's asking for it. Babe, give her what she wants. He raised his hand again. This time, he hit me harder. The crack of his palm against my face echoed off the brick wall of the science building. My vision went white for a second. I stumbled, caught myself, forced myself to stay upright. More blood, more pain. My eye was already swelling shut. Again, I said. Liam's confusion curdled into anger. You think this is funny? No. My voice was steady. I think you're a coward who can only hit women smaller than him. I think you're a liar and a cheat and a pathetic little boy who'll never be half the man his father is. I smiled through the blood. Now hit me again. Or are you too weak? He roared. The third slap was harder than the first two combined. It caught me square on the temple and sent me spinning to the ground. My knees hit gravel. My palms scraped raw. Pain lanced through my skull like a knife. I lay there for a second, face down in the dirt, and I waited for the world to stop spinning. When I looked up, Liam was standing over me, his chest heaving, his face red. Tinsley was still leaning against the car, but she wasn't laughing anymore. She was watching me with something that looked almost like respect. Get up, Liam said. I didn't move. I said get up. Slowly, painfully. I pushed myself to my knees. Blood dripped from my lip onto my hoodie. My left eye was swollen, almost completely shut. I could feel my cheekbone throbbing. Feel the wrongness of it. Feel the way the bone shifted under my skin when I moved my jaw. Fractured, I thought. Definitely fractured. I looked up at Liam through my one good eye. Thank you, I said. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. What? Thank you for showing me who you really are. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The recording app was still running. The red light blinked at me like a promise. I'll be sure to tell the police. Liam's face went pale, then red, then pale again. What did you do? I recorded everything, I said. Every word, every slap. Every time you told me I deserved it. I climbed to my feet, swaying slightly, and held up the phone so he could see the screen. You're going to prison, Liam. Not someday. Not if you get caught. Tonight. He lunged for the phone. I was ready. I stepped back, out of reach, and tucked the phone into my bra. Somewhere he couldn't grab without crossing a line even he wasn't stupid enough to cross. It's already backed up to the cloud, I said. You can break this phone. Throw it in the river. Bury it in the woods. It won't matter. The recording is on 3 different servers. And I have the passwords written down in a place you'll never find. You're lying. Am I? I tilted my head, wincing as pain shot through my neck. Try me. Tinsley pushed off the car. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. She's bluffing. She's always bluffing. She wouldn't have the nerve to actually go to the police. I looked at her. You want to bet? For a long moment, nobody moved. The 3 of us stood there in the flickering light of the parking lot. A triangle of hatred and fear and something else. Something that felt a lot like victory. Then Liam laughed. It was an ugly sound. Bitter and hollow. You think this changes anything? You think the police are going to believe some foster kid from nowhere over me? My father donated $50,000 to the district attorney's re-election campaign. My family has been in this state for 6 generations. You're nobody. Celeste. You're less than nobody. You're a charity case I took in because I felt sorry for you. Okay, I said. The word hung in the air between us. Okay, I said again. We'll see what the jury thinks when they hear you say that. A charity case I took in because I felt sorry for her. That's going to play really well, don't you think? The privileged white boy and the foster kid he abused because he thought she wouldn't fight back. Liam's smirk faltered. I'm going to destroy you, I said quietly. Not because I hate you. Not because I want revenge. Because you're a monster. And monsters belong in cages. I turned to Tinsley. Both of you. I walked away. Every step sent pain shooting through my face. My neck. My hands. The gravel crunched under my feet. The wind picked up, cold against my skin. Behind me, I heard Liam shouting. Heard Tinsley's shrill voice telling him to calm down. Heard the slam of a car door and the screech of tires. They were leaving. Good. I kept walking until I reached the main campus. Until I could see the lights of the Student Health Center glowing in the distance. Then I stopped, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? I need to report an assault. I said. My boyfriend just beat me in a parking lot. I have a fractured orbital bone, a possible concussion, and a recording of everything he said and did. Ma'am, are you safe right now? I'm safe, but I need an ambulance. And I need a police officer who's willing to arrest the son of a rich man. There was a pause. Then the operator said, help is on the way. Ma'am, stay on the line with me. I leaned against a lamppost and closed my eyes. The recording was safe. The evidence was solid. The timeline was set. And for the first time in 2 lives, Celeste Hayes was ready to win. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. I know because I counted. 7 minutes of standing under that flickering lamppost. Blood dripping down my chin. My left eye swollen to a slit. My cheekbone pulsing with a pain so deep it felt like it was coming from inside my skull. 7 minutes of pretending I was fine while my body screamed at me to lie down and never get up again. The paramedics were a man and a woman. The woman. Her name tag said Davis. Took one look at my face and started asking questions I didn't want to answer. How long ago did this happen? 15 minutes. Maybe 20. Who did this to you? My boyfriend. Where is he now? I don't know. I hesitated. He drove off. Probably back to his frat house. Davis exchanged a look with her partner. The partner, Reyes, his tag said, was already pulling out a flashlight, shining it in my eyes, checking my pupils. You're going to need imaging, he said. That eye doesn't look right. It's not. I said. My orbital bone is fractured. 3 places. Possibly 4. Both paramedics stopped. How do you know that? Davis asked. I could have told her the truth. I could have said, because the last time he hit me, I spent 6 weeks in and out of MRIs. And 4 different surgeons told me exactly how badly he'd broken my face. But I couldn't say that. Not yet. Not without sounding insane. Lucky guess. I said. Also, it hurts like hell. Davis didn't look convinced. But she didn't push. She helped me onto the stretcher, strapped me in, and started checking my vitals. Her hands were gentle. Her voice was calm. She'd probably done this 100 times. Picked up girls from parking lots and dorm rooms and the sides of highways. Girls with bruises shaped like handprints and stories that never quite added up. She knew. They all knew. But knowing and proving were 2 different things. The ride to Westbrook General took 12 minutes. I spent most of it staring at the ceiling of the ambulance, running through my mental checklist. Recording. Saved and backed up. Text messages. Screenshot and stored. Witnesses. Jasmine knew where I was going. She'd been timing me. If I didn't text her by 9, she was supposed to call the police. Evidence. My face. I touched my cheekbone gently, wincing at the contact. It felt wrong under my fingers. Soft in places it should have been hard. Loose in places it should have been solid. The bone had shifted. I could feel it. Definitely fractured. Probably needs surgery. The last time this happened, I'd waited 3 days to go to the hospital. 3 days of icing my face with frozen peas and telling everyone I'd walked into a door. 3 days of Liam texting me apologies and excuses and promises that made me feel guilty for being angry. By the time I finally went in, the damage had gotten worse. The fracture had displaced. The retina had detached. The surgeon told me I was lucky I hadn't lost the eye. I wasn't waiting this time. Westbrook General was busy for a Thursday night. The emergency room was packed with the usual crowd: drunk college kids, coughing toddlers, old people with chest pains. Davis wheeled me past all of them, through a set of double doors, into a curtained bay that smelled like antiseptic and fear. A nurse appeared almost immediately. She was middle-aged, Latina, with tired eyes and quick hands. Her name tag said Rosa. "Can you tell me what happened?" "I was assaulted." "By who?" "My boyfriend, Liam Montgomery." I watched her face as I said the name. No recognition. Good. That meant his father hadn't started paying people off yet. He hit me 3 times. Open hand. Full force. Rosa's expression didn't change. She'd heard worse. "Any loss of consciousness?" "No." "Any nausea or vomiting?" "A little. Mostly just pain." "On a scale of 1 to 10. 8. She nodded and started typing on a computer mounted to the wall. "We're going to need to do a CT scan. Your eye looks like it might have some swelling behind it. And we need to rule out intracranial bleeding." "I know." Rosa glanced at me. "You know, I've done my research." I forced a smile that made my face hurt. Orbital fractures can cause retrobulbar hematoma, which can lead to vision loss if not treated quickly. Detached retina is also a possibility. Given the force of the impact, she stopped typing and looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. She was trying to figure me out, trying to understand why the battered girl in front of her was talking like a medical student. "You're very calm for someone who just got beaten up," she said. "I've had time to process." She didn't believe me. I could tell. But she didn't push either. She finished her notes, adjusted my 4, and told me the doctor would be in shortly. Then she left. I closed my eyes and listened to the sounds of the ER. Beeping monitors, shuffling feet, a child crying somewhere down the hall. My face throbbed in time with my heartbeat. The swelling had gotten worse. I could feel it pushing against my eyelid, making it harder and harder to see. Worth it, I told myself. Every bruise, every fracture, every drop of blood. Worth it. The curtain pulled back 20 minutes later. A young man walked in, late 20s, maybe early 30s, with brown skin, wire-rimmed glasses, and the nervous energy of someone who hadn't been doing this job very long. His lab coat said Patel. M.D. Miss Hayes. His voice was higher than I expected. "I'm Dr. Patel. I'll be taking care of you tonight." "Hi." He pulled up a stool and sat down across from me, close enough that I could see the sweat on his upper lip. "I've looked at your preliminary vitals and the nurse's notes. Can you walk me through what happened?" I told the nurse. "My boyfriend hit me." "How many times?" 3 times. Open hand. Each time harder than the last. "Was there any kind of weapon involved?" "No. Just his hands." Dr. Patel made a note on his tablet. His hands were shaking slightly. I wondered if he'd ever treated a domestic violence case before, or if I was his first. "And you said his name is Liam Montgomery?" "Yes. He's a student at Westbrook University. Lives at the Sigma Phi house." "Do you know his address? His phone number?" I gave him both. He typed them into his tablet with the careful precision of someone who knew they were writing something important. "We're going to do a CT scan of your head and your orbit," he said. "I've already put in the order. The tech should be here in about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I want to ask you a few more questions." "Okay." "Has he ever hit you before?" I hesitated. This was the moment. The moment where I had to decide how much to tell, how much to reveal, how much of my history to lay bare in front of a nervous young doctor with a tablet and a conscience. In the original timeline, I'd said no. I'd lied to protect him. I'd told Dr. Patel, the same Dr. Patel, the same nervous hands, the same wire-rimmed glasses, that this was the first time. that it was an accident, that he didn't mean it. This time, I told the truth. Yes. Dr. Patel's fingers stopped moving. How many times? I don't know exactly. Dozens. He's been hitting me for about 6 months. It started with slaps, then punches, then pushing me into things. He's never used a weapon. But he doesn't need to. He's strong. And you've never reported any of this before. No. Why not? I met his eyes. Because I was afraid. Because he told me no one would believe me. Because his family has money and power, and I'm a foster kid with no one to back me up. I paused. But I'm not afraid anymore. Dr. Patel stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Slowly. And went back to his tablet. His hands weren't shaking anymore. I'm going to document everything, he said quietly. Every bruise. Every fracture. Every word you've told me. And then I'm going to file a mandatory report with the police. I know. You understand what that means. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to ask questions. They're going to want to see your phone. Your messages. Anything else you have? I have a recording. His head snapped up. A recording. I recorded the whole thing. The assault. His threats. Everything. I reached into my pocket. Slowly. Because moving my arm made my face hurt. And pulled out my phone. It's backed up to 3 different cloud servers. He can't destroy it. Dr. Patel took the phone like it was made of glass. He stared at the screen. At the recording app. At the timestamp that proved everything I'd said was true. Miss Hayes. He said slowly. Do you understand how important this is? I understand. This isn't just evidence. This is a confession. If this recording is as clear as you say it is, he's looking at felony charges. Aggravated assault. Possibly attempted murder. Depending on the extent of your injuries. I know. And you're okay with that? I smiled. It hurt. I'm more than okay with it. I'm counting on it. The CT scan took 15 minutes. The tech was a large man named Marcus who kept up a steady stream of small talk while the machine whirred around my head. He asked about my major, my classes, my plans after graduation. He didn't ask about my face. I appreciated that. When it was over, he wheeled me back to my curtained bay and told me Dr. Patel would have the results soon. I waited. 20 minutes. 30. 40. The sounds of the ER faded into background noise. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the last time I'd been in this hospital. The last time I'd let Liam Montgomery put me here. I'd been alone that time. Completely alone. Jasmine had already transferred to a different school by then. Unable to watch me destroy myself for a boy who didn't love me. My foster parents had washed their hands of me years ago. The only person who came to visit me in the hospital was Liam. And he only came to make sure I was still keeping my mouth shut. This time was different. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Jasmine. You alive? Me. Mostly. In the ER. Fractured orbit. Jasmine. OMG. On my way. Me. Don't. I'll be fine. Police are coming. I need you to stay there and be my alibi. Jasmine. Your alibi for what? Me. For not being crazy. For having a witness who can confirm I didn't do this to myself. There was a long pause. Then, Jasmine. You really planned this, didn't you? Me. I planned to survive. The rest just worked out. Jasmine. I don't know whether to be impressed or terrified. Me. Both is fine. The curtain pulled back. Dr. Patel walked in. And I knew immediately that the news wasn't good. His face was pale. His hands were shaking again. He held a tablet in one hand and a stack of printed images in the other. Miss Hayes, he said, we have the results. How bad? He sat down on the stool. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Not pity. Exactly. But something close. Something that looked like he was seeing me for the first time. Your orbital bone is fractured in 3 places, he said. There's a piece of bone pressing against your optic nerve. If it shifts even a few millimeters, you could lose vision in that eye. I know. You also have a detached retina. The force of the impact caused the retina to separate from the back of your eye. That requires surgery. Soon. How soon? Within the next 48 hours. Ideally sooner. He pulled up an image on his tablet and turned it so I could see. This is your skull. See this dark spot here? That's a subdural hematoma. Bleeding between your brain and your skull. It's small right now, but if it gets bigger, it could cause brain damage. Or kill me. Dr. Patel swallowed. Yes. I looked at the image. The dark spot was tiny, smaller than a dime, but it was there. Proof that Liam Montgomery had hit me hard enough to make my brain bleed. Perfect. This wasn't a fall. Dr. Patel said quietly. I know you told the nurse it was a fall. But this. He pointed at the image. At the fractures. At the bleeding. At the retina hanging loose in my eye. This was caused by blunt force trauma. Repeated blunt force trauma. Someone hit you. Miss Hayes. Multiple times. Very hard. I know. He looked at me. Who did this to you? Liam Montgomery. And you're sure you want me to file the report? I'm sure. He nodded slowly. He typed something on his tablet. Then he set it aside and leaned forward. His elbows on his knees. His face close to mine. I'm going to tell you something, he said. And I want you to listen very carefully. Okay. I've been a doctor for 3 years. In that time, I've treated maybe 24 domestic violence patients. Most of them lie to me. They say they fell. They say they ran into a door. They say they were mugged. Anything to protect the person who hurt them. He paused. You're the first one who ever came in with a plan. I'm not protecting him. I know. That's not what I meant. He glanced toward the curtain, like he was making sure no one was listening. What I mean is, you knew this was going to happen. You knew he was going to hurt you. And you let him. My heart skipped a beat. I don't. You don't have to explain. He held up a hand. I'm not judging you. I'm not going to report you. I'm just telling you that I see it. The way you talk. The way you answer questions. The way you already knew your diagnosis before I even walked in the room. He shook his head. You've been through this before. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I'm going to file the report, he said. I'm going to document everything. I'm going to include your recording, your messages, everything you've told me. And I'm going to tell the police that in my professional opinion, the force required to cause these injuries is consistent with an intentional assault. Not an accident. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He stood up. The surgery is going to be hard. The recovery is going to be harder. And the trial, if it gets that far, is going to be brutal. His lawyers are going to tear you apart. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to say you made it up. They're going to ask why you stayed with him if he was so violent. I know. They're going to ask why you didn't leave sooner. I know. They're going to ask why you went to the parking lot in the first place. If you knew what he was capable of. I looked up at him. My good eye. My only working eye. For the moment. Because I needed the evidence. I said. And I was willing to bleed for it. Dr. Patel stared at me. Then he shook his head. Slow and wondering. And let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. You're something else. Miss Hayes. So I've been told. He left to make the call. I lay back against the pillows and closed my eye. The pain was getting worse. A deep, pulsing throb that radiated from my cheek to my jaw to my skull. The hematoma was probably expanding. The retina was probably detaching further. Every minute I lay here, my body was getting more and more broken. And I couldn't have been happier. The police arrived an hour later. 2 officers. A man and a woman. The woman was Detective Marlene Cross. I recognized her immediately, even though I'd never met her in this timeline. In the original, she'd been the one who finally arrested Liam. The one who'd looked me in the eye and told me I was brave. The one who'd cried with me when the verdict came down. She was 45, maybe 50, with gray, streaked hair and a face that had seen too much. Her partner was younger, a man named Officer Reeves. All broad shoulders and nervous energy, and the kind of earnest sincerity that made you want to trust him. Miss Hayes. Detective Cross pulled the curtain aside and stepped into the bay. I'm Detective Cross. This is Officer Reeves. We're here to ask you a few questions about what happened tonight. I know. She sat down in the chair Dr. Patel had vacated. Her eyes swept over my face. The swelling, the bruising, the blood drying on my lip. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her hands tighten on her notepad. Can you tell us what happened? I told her. Everything. The text from Liam. The walk to the lot. Tinsley's taunts. Liam's demands. The 3 slaps. The recording. The way I'd walked away while they stood there in the parking lot. Too stunned to follow. When I finished, Detective Cross set down her pen. You recorded the whole thing. Yes. Can we hear it? I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, and pressed play. Liam's voice filled the curtained bay. You let me show her you're sorry. You let me show her you know your place. My voice. Quiet and steady. Okay. The sound of the slap. Sharp. Brutal. So loud that Officer Reeves flinched. Then my voice again. Do it again. Another slap. Harder. Again. A 3rd slap. The sound of my body hitting the ground. Then Liam's voice. Get up. Silence. I said get up. More silence. Then my voice. Strained but clear. Thank you. What? Thank you for showing me who you really are. I'll be sure to tell the police. The recording ended. Detective Cross sat very still for a long moment. Then she looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't expected. Respect. You were very brave, she said. I was very prepared. She nodded slowly. The doctor tells me you need surgery. Retina. Orbit. Maybe the hematoma. If it gets worse. That's what he said. And you understand that this is a felony. Aggravated assault with a potential for life. Altering injuries. Depending on what the surgeons find, we could be looking at attempted murder charges. I understand. She leaned forward. Miss Hayes, I need you to be honest with me. Did you provoke him? Did you say something to make him angry? I met her eyes. I told him I knew he was cheating on me with Tinsley. I told him he was a coward. I told him to hit me again if he was strong enough. That's provocation. No, I said. That's survival. He was going to hit me no matter what I said. The only difference is that this time, I made sure someone was listening. Detective Cross was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up, tucked her notepad into her jacket, and looked down at me. I'm going to file a warrant for his arrest, she said, and for Tinsley Montgomery, as an accessory, with the recording and the medical evidence. I should be able to get it signed by morning. Thank you. Don't thank me. She paused at the curtain. You did the hard part. Miss Hayes, you survived. The rest is just paperwork. She left. Officer Reeves followed. I lay there in the quiet of the curtained bay, my face throbbing, my eyes swollen shut, my body broken in 6 ways. And I smiled. The surgery was scheduled for 7 the next morning. Dr. Patel came back to explain the procedure. The orbital reconstruction. The retinal reattachment. The drain they'd need to place in my skull to monitor the hematoma. He used words like titanium mesh and scleral buckle and burr hole. And I nodded along like I understood what they meant. I didn't. Not really. But I'd been through this before. And I knew that the details didn't matter. What mattered was the paper trail. What mattered was the evidence. What mattered was the look on Liam's face when he realized he wasn't getting out of this one. Around midnight, a nurse came in to check my vitals. It was Rosa again. She took my blood pressure, my temperature, my oxygen levels. She adjusted my IV. She asked if I needed anything for the pain. No, I said. I want to feel it. She looked at me strangely, but didn't argue. Before she left, she paused at the curtain. You know, she said quietly, most girls who come in here, they cry. They ask for their boyfriends. They make excuses. I'm not most girls. No, she agreed. You're not. She pulled the curtain closed behind her. I stared at the ceiling and waited for morning. At 6:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Jasmine. Liam just got arrested. They pulled him out of the frat house in handcuffs. Someone recorded it. It's already on Twitter. Me. Good. Jasmine. Tinsley too. She's screaming about her dad's lawyers. It's honestly kind of funny. Me. It won't be funny when they're in prison. Jasmine. You really think they'll go to prison? Me. I know they will. Jasmine. How can you be so sure? I thought about the evidence. The recording. The medical reports. The text messages. The witness statements. The paper trail I'd been building for months. Even before I woke up in this timeline. Even before I understood what was happening to me. Me. Because I'm not giving them a choice. I set down my phone and closed my eyes. The surgery was about to begin. And so was the rest of my life. The surgery took 4 hours. I know because I counted the minutes between the moment they put the mask over my face and the moment I woke up in the recovery room. Groggy and disoriented and in more pain than I'd ever felt in my life. The world was blurry. My left eye was covered with a thick gauze patch. There was a drain coming out of my skull. I could feel it. A thin tube that disappeared into my hairline and led to a plastic bulb full of pink, tinged fluid. A nurse appeared at my bedside. Not Rosa. Someone new. A young white woman with blonde hair and a kind smile. Her name tag said Kelly. Welcome back, she said. You did great. The surgeon said everything went as expected. What time is it? 11:15 in the morning. You've been out for about 4 hours. I tried to sit up. The room spun. Kelly pushed me gently back down. Easy. You're going to be dizzy for a while. The hematoma drain is still in place. And you're on a pretty strong painkiller cocktail. Just rest. I need my phone. It's in your personal effects bag. I can get it for you. But you really should. I need my phone now. She hesitated. Then she sighed and disappeared through a set of double doors. When she came back, she was holding my phone in a plastic evidence bag. Detective Cross put a hold on your personal effects, she said. But she said you could have the phone as long as you didn't delete anything. I won't. She handed me the bag. I fumbled with the zipper, my hands clumsy from the painkillers, and pulled out my phone. 47 text messages, 19 missed calls, 112 notifications from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The arrest had gone viral. Unknown number. You're a liar and a slut, and you ruined his life. Unknown number. I hope you die. Unknown number. Liam would never do this. You're obviously crazy. Unknown number. We know where you live. I scrolled through the messages with a numb sort of detachment. The threats. The insults. The people who'd never met me. Never met Liam. But had somehow decided that I was the villain in the story. There were supportive messages too. Girls I'd never spoken to, reaching out to say they believed me. A few professors. A teaching assistant who said she'd been through something similar and wanted to help. But the hate messages were louder. They always were. I set down the phone and closed my eyes. You knew this would happen. I told myself. You knew they'd come after you. You knew it would get ugly. But you also knew it would be worth it. The hospital kept me for 3 days. 3 days of tests and scans and consultations with surgeons. 3 days of nurses checking my vitals every 4 hours and doctors asking me the same questions over and over again. 3 days of lying in a narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, and waiting for the next piece of bad news. The orbital reconstruction was successful. Mostly. The surgeon, a tired-looking man named Dr. Hartman, told me that I'd have some permanent vision loss in my left eye. Not blindness. Exactly. But a kind of persistent blurriness that no amount of corrective lenses could fix. The bone was too fragmented. He said, "We did our best. But there's only so much we can do with titanium mesh and donor grafts. You're going to have some issues with depth perception. Possibly some chronic pain." Okay. You don't seem upset. I'm not. I touched the gauze over my eye. It's a small price to pay. Dr. Hartman looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Then he shrugged and moved on to the next patient. The hematoma was more concerning. The drain had done its job. The bleeding had stopped. And the fluid around my brain was slowly being reabsorbed. But there was still a risk of long-term damage. Memory issues. Cognitive delays. Personality changes. I need you to be honest with me, the neurologist said. Her name was Dr. Okonkwo. And she had the kind of no-nonsense manner that made you want to tell her everything. Have you noticed any changes in your thinking since the assault? Any confusion? Any difficulty finding words? No. Any mood swings? Irritability? Episodes of unexplained anger or sadness? No. Any intrusive thoughts? Memories that feel like they're happening in real time? I hesitated. Miss Hayes. Sometimes. I said carefully. I have dreams. Nightmares. Mostly. About what happened. About what could have happened. That's normal for trauma survivors. She made a note on her tablet. But if the dreams start to feel real, if you can't tell the difference between what happened and what you dreamed, I need you to call me immediately. I will. She left. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the original timeline. The dreams I'd had then. Not nightmares, but memories. Vivid. Technicolor memories of a life I'd already lived. A life that hadn't happened yet. That's not trauma. I thought. That's something else. But I can't tell them that. Detective Cross visited me on the second day. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. A coffee stain on her shirt. The general air of someone who'd been working for 48 hours straight. We arrested Liam Montgomery at 6:15 on Friday morning, she said, pulling up a chair. He's being held without bail pending a dangerousness hearing. Tinsley Montgomery was arrested about an hour later. Her father posted bail within 6 hours. I expected that. Yeah. Well, money talks. She pulled out a notepad. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Liam. I know it's hard, but the more detail you can give me, the stronger our case will be. I can give you a lot of detail. She raised an eyebrow. How much detail? I reached into the drawer of my bedside table and pulled out the notebook. The one I'd hidden under my mattress in the original timeline. The one I'd brought back with me. Not physically, but in my memory. The one I'd spent the last 3 weeks recreating. Entry by painful entry. 47 incidents. I said, handing it to her. Dating back about 6 months. Dates. Times. Locations. Photos of the injuries. Screenshots of the texts he sent afterward. Apologizing and promising it would never happen again. Detective Cross took the notebook like it was made of gold. She flipped through the pages, her eyes widening as she read. Christ, she whispered. You documented everything. Every time. This isn't just evidence. This is a roadmap. She looked up at me. How did you have the presence of mind to do this? Most victims. I'm not most victims. No. She agreed. You're not. She spent the next 3 hours going through the notebook page by page. I walked her through each incident. The first slap in his dorm room. The punch that broke my rib. The night he shoved me down a flight of stairs and told everyone I was drunk. I told her about the gaslighting. The manipulation. The way he'd convinced me that I was crazy. That I was the problem. That I was lucky to have someone who loved me enough to put up with my drama. By the end, Detective Cross's hands were shaking. This is the most comprehensive documentation I've ever seen, she said. And I've been doing this for 15 years. I had a lot of time to think. Apparently. She closed the notebook and tucked it into her jacket. I'm going to have my team start corroborating these entries. The texts, the photos, the witness statements. If even half of this holds up, Liam Montgomery is never getting out of prison. That's the idea. She stood up to leave. Then she paused at the door and looked back at me. You know he's going to try to contact you, she said. Through lawyers. Through friends. Through family. He's going to offer you money. He's going to threaten you. He's going to try to make you drop the charges. I know. Are you going to drop the charges? I looked at her with my one good eye. Detective Cross. I didn't go through 4 hours of surgery and 3 fractured bones and a brain bleed to drop the charges. I went through all of that to watch him rot. She smiled. It was the first time I'd seen her smile. Good girl, she said. Then she was gone. The calls started the next day. First, a lawyer. Some guy from a white shoe firm in Boston. Name of Harrington. Voice like honey and eyes like a shark. He called my hospital room at 8 in the morning, before the nurses had even done their rounds. Miss Hayes. My name is Charles Harrington. I represent Liam Montgomery. I'm calling to discuss a potential resolution to this matter. There's nothing to discuss. With respect, there's a great deal to discuss. My client maintains his innocence, but he's willing to consider a civil settlement to avoid the trauma of a public trial. How much? I beg your pardon. How much is he offering? A pause. I'm not at liberty to discuss specific numbers over the phone, but I can tell you that my client is prepared to be very generous. Tell him I don't want his money. Miss Hayes, I want him in prison. That's the only settlement I'll accept. Prison. For as long as the law allows. I hung up. The second call came an hour later. Another lawyer. This one a woman. She didn't bother with the honeyed voice. She went straight for the throat. Miss Hayes. My name is Victoria Ashford. I represent Tinsley Montgomery. My client is willing to testify against Liam in exchange for immunity. Immunity for what? Immunity from prosecution. She wasn't there for the assault. She was just a bystander. She didn't know what he was going to do. She told him to hit me. She says she doesn't remember that. I have it on recording. Another pause. Longer this time. I see. Victoria Ashford said quietly. Well, perhaps we can come to some other arrangement. There's no arrangement. Tinsley Montgomery encouraged my boyfriend to beat me. She laughed while he did it. She's going to prison. Just like him. She's 19 years old. Miss Hayes. Her whole life is ahead of her. So is mine. But I'm the one with the fractured eye socket. I hung up again. The third call came at noon. This time, it wasn't a lawyer. Celeste. Liam's voice. Soft. Apologetic. The voice he used when he wanted something. Baby, please don't hang up. How did you get this number? Does it matter? I need to talk to you. Please. 5 minutes. I should have hung up. I knew I should have hung up. Detective Cross had warned me not to take his calls. Not to engage. Not to give him any opportunity to manipulate me. But I didn't hang up because I wanted to hear him squirm. You have 2 minutes. I said. Thank you. Thank you. Baby. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I did what I did. I was drunk. I was angry. Tinsley was in my ear, telling me you were cheating on me, telling me you didn't love me. Liam. I know. I know. It's not an excuse. Nothing is an excuse. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm so sorry. His voice cracked. I love you, Celeste. I've always loved you. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Please don't throw me in prison. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll get help. I'll never touch you again. I swear on my mother's grave. Your mother isn't dead. What? Your mother isn't dead. She lives in Greenwich. She plays tennis on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You've never once sworn on her grave because she's still alive. Silence. So you're already lying, I said. And we're only 30 seconds in. Celeste. You hit me 3 times. Liam. You fractured my orbital bone. You detached my retina. You gave me a brain bleed. The surgeon told me I might have permanent vision loss in my left eye. Do you understand what that means? I might never see clearly again because of you. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to hit me hard enough to break my face. You didn't mean to keep hitting me after I was already on the ground. You didn't mean to stand over me and tell me to get up so you could do it again. I was out of control. I wasn't thinking. I'm not that person. Celeste. You know I'm not that person. No. I said. I don't know that. Because the person I thought you were would never have done this. The person I thought you were would have protected me. Would have loved me. Would have been the man you pretended to be when we first started dating. I can be that man. I swear. Just give me a chance. I gave you 40. 7 chances. 40. 7 times you put your hands on me. 40. 7 times you apologized. 40. 7 times I believed you. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. I'm not giving you a 48th. Liam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. Harder. You're making a mistake. Am I? My father has more money than God. He's hired the best legal team in the country. They're going to tear you apart on the stand. They're going to bring up your foster care records, your psychiatric history, the fact that you were diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when you were 14. The diagnosis that was overturned by 2 independent psychiatrists. They don't know that. All they know is what's in the file. And what's in the file makes you look crazy. Celeste. Unstable. The kind of girl who would make up a story to ruin a good man's life. Good luck proving that when I have a recording of you telling me to let you hit me. You provoked me. I asked you to hit me again. There's a difference. Not to a jury. I smiled. It hurt. We'll see. I hung up. Then I called Detective Cross and told her about the call. She wasn't happy. I told you not to take his calls. I know. He's going to use that against you. He's going to say you were baiting him. Let him try. I looked at my phone. At the call log. At the number Liam had used to reach me. Did you trace it? I did. It came from his father's house. Which means he's out on bail. I thought you said he was being held without bail. I said pending a dangerousness hearing. The hearing was this morning. His father's lawyers argued that he wasn't a flight risk and that he'd surrender his passport and submit to electronic monitoring. The judge bought it. Which judge? Pendergast. He's old. He's conservative. He's known for being soft on domestic violence cases. I closed my eyes. Judge Pendergast. I remembered him from the original timeline. The same watery blue eyes. The same condescending smile. The same way of looking at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. He'd been the one to set Liam's bail at $500,000. A fraction of what his father could afford. He'd been the one to deny my request for a protective order. He'd been the one who'd smiled at Liam in the courtroom and called him a promising young man. Can we request a different judge? I asked. Not unless Pendergast recuses himself. And he's not going to do that. Then we have to work with what we have. Detective Cross sighed. Celeste, I'm going to be honest with you. This case isn't going to be easy. Liam's lawyers are going to throw everything they have at you. They're going to try to discredit you. They're going to try to make you look unstable. They're going to use your past against you. I know. And you're still willing to go through with it. I touched the gauze over my eye. I didn't come this far to give up now. The hospital discharged me on the 4th day. Jasmine picked me up. She took one look at my face. The bruising that had spread from my eye to my jaw. The gauze that covered half my forehead. The drain that was still sticking out of my skull. And burst into tears. Oh my God, she whispered. Celeste. Oh my God. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're. She gestured at my face. At the wheelchair I was sitting in. At the nurse who was pushing me toward the exit. You're a mess. I'm a mess who's going to put her boyfriend in prison. Jasmine wiped her eyes. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. But it makes me feel better. She hugged me. Gently. Carefully. Like I was made of glass. Then she helped me into her car and drove me back to our dorm. The campus looked different. The trees were starting to change color. Students walked between buildings, laughing and talking and living their normal lives. A few of them looked at my face as we drove past. Most of them looked away. They knew. Word had spread. Everyone on campus had heard about Liam's arrest, about the recording, about the girl who'd finally fought back. Some of them believed me. Some of them didn't. Most of them just wanted to stay out of it. Jasmine parked outside our dorm and helped me up the stairs. Our room was on the 3rd floor. No elevator. By the time we reached the top, I was dizzy and nauseous and dripping with sweat. I'm going to kill him, Jasmine muttered, unlocking the door. Not send him to prison. Actually kill him. With my bare hands. Get in line. She helped me to my bed. I lay down slowly, carefully, making sure not to jostle the drain. The mattress was soft beneath me. The pillow smelled like home. Are you going to be okay? Jasmine asked. I don't know. Should I stay? No. You have class. My best friend just got her face broken. I don't care about class. Go to class. Jasmine. I need you to be normal. I need you to keep living your life. If you fall apart too, they win. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, grabbed her backpack, and headed for the door. Call me if you need anything, she said. Anything at all. I will. She left. I lay in the quiet of our dorm room and stared at the ceiling. The next few weeks were going to be hard. The trial was months away. In the meantime, I had to heal. I had to prepare. I had to make sure that when Liam Montgomery's lawyers came for me, I was ready. I reached for my notebook, the one I'd given to Detective Cross, and pulled out my phone. There was more work to do. The setup wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first week back on campus was a nightmare. Not because of the pain, although there was plenty of that. The drain came out on day 5, leaving behind a raw, tender spot on my scalp that throbbed every time I turned my head too fast. The gauze over my eye came off on day 7, revealing a landscape of purple and yellow bruising that spread from my hairline to my jaw. My vision was blurry in my left eye, just like Dr. Hartman had predicted. Not blind. Just fuzzy. Like I was looking at the world through a smudged window. But the pain I could handle. The pain was physical. The pain would heal. What I couldn't handle was the way people looked at me. Walking to class was an exercise in endurance. Every step I took, I could feel their eyes on my face. On the bruises. On the swelling. On the evidence of everything Liam had done. Some people looked away quickly, embarrassed to be caught staring. Some people held my gaze, their faces tight with sympathy or anger or something I couldn't quite name. And some people, the ones who'd been friends with Liam, the ones who'd laughed at his jokes and nodded along when he called me crazy, looked at me like I was the villain, like I'd done something wrong. like I'd asked for it. Slut. Someone hissed as I walked past the student union on Tuesday. I didn't see who said it. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. My spine straight. My head high. My one good eye fixed on the path ahead. Traitor. Someone else muttered in the dining hall. I was standing in line for coffee. My hood pulled up over my head. My sunglasses hiding the worst of the bruising. A girl I'd never seen before. Blonde. Pretty. Wearing a Sigma Phi sweatshirt. Stepped in front of me and blocked my path. "Excuse me," I said. "You heard me." She crossed her arms over her chest. "Liam loved you. He would have done anything for you. And you threw him in jail like he was some kind of monster. He fractured my orbital bone. He made a mistake. He gave me a brain bleed." She rolled her eyes. "It was an accident. He didn't mean to hurt you that bad. But you had to go and ruin his life over one little fight." One little fight. 47 incidents. 6 months of bruises and apologies and promises that meant nothing. And she called it one little fight. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I pulled down my sunglasses. Just enough for her to see the bruising. The swelling. The yellowed skin that still hadn't healed. "This," I said, pointing to my face, "is not one little fight. This is 3 fractured bones, a detached retina, and a brain bleed that almost killed me. Your boy did this to me because I told him I knew he was cheating on me with Tinsley. And you want to stand here and call me a traitor?" The girl's face went red. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. "That's what I thought," I said. I pulled my sunglasses back up, stepped around her, and got my coffee. Jasmine was waiting for me at our usual table. She'd watched the whole thing from across the room. Her hands clenched into fists, her jaw tight. "I can't believe her," Jasmine said as I sat down. "I can't believe anyone is defending him." "You've never been in a relationship with a white boy from Connecticut money," I said. "They could literally commit murder on camera and people would still find a way to blame the victim. That's not funny." "It's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be true." Jasmine reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were warm. "How are you doing?" "Really? I thought about lying. It would have been easy. I'd been lying to everyone for months. Years. If you counted the original timeline, I'd lied to my professors, my friends, my therapists. I'd lied to myself. But Jasmine deserved the truth. "I'm tired," I said. "I'm tired of being in pain. I'm tired of people looking at me like I'm a monster. I'm tired of having to prove that I didn't deserve what happened to me." "Then stop proving it." "What?" "Stop trying to convince people. The people who believe you. They believe you. The people who don't. Nothing you say is going to change their minds." She squeezed my hand. "You don't owe anyone your story, Celeste. You don't have to perform your trauma for people who don't deserve to see it." I stared at her. In the original timeline, Jasmine had transferred to a different school before any of this happened. She'd watched me spiral for months. Watched me make excuse after excuse for Liam's behavior. And finally she'd just given up. She'd packed her bags and moved to a university 3 states away and never looked back. I'd always wondered what would have happened if she'd stayed. If she'd been there to hold my hand in the hospital, to defend me in the dining hall, to tell me that I didn't owe anyone my pain. Now I knew. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For being here." She smiled. Where else would I be? The threats escalated over the next few days. At first, it was just anonymous text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. The usual stuff. "You're a liar. You ruined his life. I hope you rot in hell." I screenshot them and forwarded them to Detective Cross, who added them to the growing file of evidence against Liam. But then the messages got worse. "You should kill yourself. No one would miss you. If you drop the charges, we'll make it worth your while. If you don't, we'll make you wish you had." I reported those two. Detective Cross called me back within the hour. These are credible threats. She said, we're tracing the numbers. In the meantime, I want you to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't walk across campus after dark. If you see anything suspicious, call me immediately. I will. Celeste. She hesitated. Is there somewhere you can go? Somewhere off campus. Just until things calm down. I don't have anywhere else to go. The university has a victim services office. They can help you find temporary housing. I'm not leaving my dorm. I'm not hiding. I didn't do anything wrong. Detective Cross sighed. I know you didn't. But these people are serious. They've already made death threats. I don't want to read about you in the morning paper. You won't. How can you be so sure? Because I'd already survived worse. Because I'd already died once. Not physically, but spiritually. And I'd clawed my way back. Because I'd spent 2 years in the original timeline learning how to be afraid. And I was done with it. But I couldn't tell her any of that. Because I'm not the same girl I was a week ago. I said. And I'm never going to be her again. She didn't push. She just told me to stay safe and hung up. I didn't stay safe. I went to class. I went to the dining hall. I went to the library. I lived my life like I wasn't terrified. And eventually, slowly, painfully, the terror started to fade. Not because the threats stopped. They didn't. But because I stopped caring. The first time I saw Tinsley after the arrest, I was walking back from my morning sociology class. She was standing outside the student union, surrounded by a group of friends. Her blonde hair shining in the afternoon sun. She looked thinner than I remembered. Thinner and paler. Like she hadn't been sleeping. There were dark circles under her eyes that even expensive concealer couldn't hide. She saw me before I saw her. I was crossing the quad. My head down. My sunglasses on. My hood pulled up. I wasn't trying to hide. I just didn't want to make eye contact with anyone. But Tinsley's voice cut through the noise of the crowd like a knife. Celeste. I stopped. The quad went quiet. The students around us, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, seemed to sense that something was about to happen. They stepped back, forming a loose circle around us like spectators at a fight. Tinsley walked toward me. Her friends stayed where they were, watching with wide eyes and open mouths. You have a lot of nerve, she said, stopping a few feet away. Showing your face around here after what you did. What I did. You know what you did. You lied. You made up a story. You ruined Liam's life because he wouldn't leave me for you. I pulled off my sunglasses. Let her see the bruises. Let her see the swelling. Let her see exactly what her boyfriend had done to my face. I didn't make up anything. I said. He hit me. You watched. You laughed. You told him to do it again. I didn't. I have it on recording. Tinsley. Every word. Every laugh. Every time you stood there and did nothing while he put his hands on me. Her face went pale. That recording is fake. It's been verified by the police department's digital forensics team. But sure, it's fake. I'm going to sue you for defamation. Sue away. I'm sure a jury will love hearing about the time you encouraged your ex-boyfriend to beat up his current girlfriend. I tilted my head. How's your father's law firm doing? By the way, I heard they lost a major client after your arrest. Something about not wanting to be associated with a family that raises domestic violence apologists. Tinsley's face went from pale to red. Her hands shook at her sides. You're a bitch, she whispered. Maybe, but I'm a bitch with a fractured orbital bone and a brain bleed. What's your excuse? She swung at me. I saw it coming. In the original timeline, I'd have frozen. I'd have let her hit me. I'd have crumpled to the ground and cried and made myself smaller and smaller until she got bored and walked away. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I caught her wrist. Not hard. Not violently. Just enough to stop her hand an inch from my face. I held her there for a moment, looking at her, watching the fear bloom in her eyes. Don't, I said quietly. You're already looking at accessory charges. Do you really want to add assault to the list? She yanked her hand away. She stumbled backward, nearly falling, caught by one of her friends. Her chest was heaving. Her eyes were wet. You're going to pay for this, she said. My father is going to destroy you. Tell your father I said hi. And tell him his daughter is going to prison. I put my sunglasses back on and walked away. Behind me, the quad erupted in noise. Whispers. Shouts. The sound of 100 conversations starting at once. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd made my point. That night, Jasmine found me in our room, sitting on my bed, staring at the wall. I heard what happened, she said, closing the door behind her. Everyone's talking about it. Good. She really tried to hit you. She really tried. Jasmine sat down on her bed across from me. And you just caught her hand, like some kind of action movie hero. I didn't want to get hit again. My face hurts enough as it is. No. I know. It's just. She shook her head. The Celeste I knew 6 months ago would have let her do it. Would have apologized for making her angry. Would have blamed herself. The Celeste I was 6 months ago is dead. Jasmine looked at me for a long moment. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Is it? She leaned forward. Celeste, I've known you since freshman year. I've watched you twist yourself into knots trying to make everyone else happy. I've watched you apologize for things that weren't your fault. I've watched you let people walk all over you because you were too scared to stand up for yourself. And now I'm standing up. Now you're standing up. She agreed. But I need to know, are you doing this because you want justice? Or are you doing this because you want revenge? What's the difference? Justice is about making things right. Revenge is about making them hurt. She reached across the space between our beds and took my hand. I'm not saying you don't have a right to be angry. You do. You have every right in the world to be angry. But I don't want you to lose yourself in it. I don't want you to become someone who's so focused on destroying Liam that you forget to live your own life. I'm not going to forget. How do you know? Because I'd already done that. In the original timeline. I'd spent years consumed by anger. Years of therapy and medication and support groups and still, I couldn't let it go. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I couldn't stop dreaming about him. I couldn't stop writing him letters and showing up at the prison and begging him to love me. I'd lost myself in Liam Montgomery once. I wasn't going to do it again. Because I have you. I said. And I have school. And I have a future that doesn't include him. I squeezed her hand. I'm not doing this for revenge. Jasmine. I'm doing this so no one else has to go through what I went through. She searched my face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. Okay. I believe you. Good. Now eat something. You're starting to look like a skeleton. I laughed. It hurt, but it was worth it. The weeks that followed were a blur of doctor's appointments and therapy sessions and meetings with the prosecutor. Ada Machen was a force of nature. A small, fierce woman in her 40s with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She came to visit me at the university's victim services office. A stack of files tucked under her arm and a cup of coffee in her hand. Miss Hayes, she said, sitting down across from me. I've reviewed your case. All of it. The recording. The medical records. The notebook Detective Cross gave me. And I have to be honest with you. She set down her coffee. This is the strongest domestic violence case I've ever seen. I blinked. Really? Really? Most cases like this come down to he said. She said. One person's word against another's. But you. She tapped the files. You have everything. Audio evidence. Medical documentation. A detailed log of every incident going back 6 months. Witness statements from people who saw your injuries. Text messages from Liam apologizing for hurting you. He always apologized. Most abusers do. But most victims delete those messages. They're too painful to look at. Too humiliating to keep. She looked at me with something like admiration. You kept everything. I knew I'd need it someday. Most people don't think that way. Most people hope they'll never need it. They hope the person they love will change. They hope the abuse was a one-time thing. She shook her head. You didn't hope. You planned. I learned not to hope. ADHN was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward. Liam's lawyers are going to try to use that against you. She said. They're going to say you were collecting evidence because you were planning to frame him. They're going to say you provoked him. They're going to say you wanted this to happen. I know. They're going to put you on the stand and ask you why you stayed. Why you didn't leave. Why you kept going back to someone who hurt you over and over again. I know. And they're going to bring up your history. Your time in foster care. The psychiatric evaluation when you were 14. Anything they can find to make you look unstable. I took a deep breath. What do you need me to do? ADHN smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted her prey. I need you to be honest. She said. I need you to tell the truth. I need you to look at that jury and tell them exactly what Liam Montgomery did to you. And I need you to not break when his lawyers try to tear you apart. I won't break. How can you be so sure? I touched my left eye. The one that would never see clearly again. The one that would always remind me of what I'd survived. Because I've already been broken. I said. And I put myself back together. There's nothing they can do to me that I haven't already done to myself. ADHN studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Good. She said. Then let's get to work. We spent the next 3 hours going over my testimony. She asked me questions. Hundreds of them. About every incident in my notebook. Every text message. Every bruise. She pushed me. She challenged me. She played devil's advocate. Asking me the same questions Liam's lawyers would ask. Watching my face for any sign of weakness. I didn't give her any. By the time we finished, it was dark outside. The victim services office was empty. The janitor had come and gone. ADHN looked tired but satisfied. You're ready, she said. I know. The trial starts in 6 weeks. Between now and then, I want you to focus on healing. Go to your appointments. Take your medication. See your therapist. She stood up and gathered her files. And stay away from Liam. Don't take his calls. Don't answer his texts. Don't let him anywhere near you. I won't. If he tries to contact you, you call me immediately. Understand? Understand. She paused at the door. Miss Hayes. Yes. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. She left. I sat in the empty office for a long time, staring at the wall, thinking about everything that had brought me here. 6 weeks until the trial. 6 weeks until I got to tell the world what Liam Montgomery had done to me. 6 weeks until I got to watch him fall. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the messages. The threats had slowed down over the past few weeks. Not stopped, but slowed. Most people had moved on to the next scandal. The ones who hadn't were mostly Liam's close friends. People who'd known him for years and couldn't accept that he was capable of something so violent. I didn't care about them anymore. I'd stopped caring about what people thought of me a long time ago. Instead, I opened my notebook. The new one. The one I'd started after the assault. And began to write. Day 20. 7. The swelling is almost gone. The bruising has faded to yellow. The doctors say I'm healing well. They say I should make a full recovery. Aside from the vision loss, Liam's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the case. They argued that the recording was obtained illegally because I didn't have Liam's consent to record him. The judge denied the motion. The recording is admissible. Tinsley's father tried to get her charges dropped by offering to pay for my medical bills. I refused. The charges stand. I saw Liam's mother in the grocery store yesterday. She looked right through me like I wasn't there. I don't know if she didn't recognize me or if she was pretending not to. Either way, it doesn't matter. The trial starts in 6 weeks. I'll be ready. I closed the notebook and set it aside. Outside my window, the campus was quiet. The trees were losing their leaves. The air smelled like winter. The escalation was over. The reckoning was about to begin. The knock came at 7 in the morning. I wasn't sleeping. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. Not since the night of the assault. Not since the nightmares started. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that parking lot. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel his hand on my face, could hear the crack of bone, could taste the blood in my mouth. So I was awake when the knock came. I was sitting at my desk, reading a textbook I couldn't focus on, when the sound cut through the silence of the dorm room like a gunshot. Jasmine groaned from her bed. Who the hell is that at 7 in the morning? I'll get it. I pulled on my robe, the one that covered the bruises, the one that made me look less like a victim and more like a normal college student, and opened the door. Detective Cross stood in the hallway. She was wearing the same clothes she'd been wearing the last time I saw her. Jeans, a button-down shirt, a jacket that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. There were bags under her eyes so dark they looked like bruises. Detective. I stepped back, letting her in. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She walked past me into the room, her eyes sweeping over the space like she was looking for something. I just need to talk to you. Off the record. Jasmine sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. Should I leave? No. Detective Cross pulled out the desk chair and sat down. Actually, I'd like you to stay. You're on my witness list. Jasmine went pale. I'm a witness. You're Celeste's roommate. You saw her injuries. You heard her talk about what Liam did to her. You kept a log of incidents. Detective Cross pulled out her notepad. You're going to be an important part of this case. I didn't sign up for this. Nobody signs up for this. Detective Cross's voice was kind but firm. But you're here. And your testimony could make the difference between Liam Montgomery walking free and Liam Montgomery going to prison for the next 20 years. Jasmine looked at me. Her eyes were wide, scared. I'd never seen her like this before. Not in this timeline. Not in the original. Jasmine was always the strong one. The one who held everything together. The one who knew what to say and when to say it. But now she looked like a little girl. Like someone who'd just realized that the world was darker than she'd thought. You don't have to do this. I said, if you're not ready. I'm ready. She took a deep breath. I'm ready. I didn't expect it to be so real. You know, I knew Liam was a monster. I knew what he did to you. But now I have to stand up in front of a courtroom and say it out loud. In front of his family. In front of his lawyers. In front of everyone. I know. What if I freeze? What if I forget something? What if they make me look stupid? They won't. Detective Cross leaned forward. We're going to prepare you. We're going to go over every question they might ask. Every answer you might give. By the time you take the stand, you'll be ready. Jasmine nodded slowly. Okay. I can do this. Yes, you can. Detective Cross turned to me. Celeste, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Have you been contacted by anyone connected to Liam Montgomery since the last time we spoke? No. Just his lawyers. And his mother. Once. Detective Cross's eyes sharpened. His mother contacted you. She called me last week. Left a voicemail. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't important. Everything is important. She held out her hand. Let me hear the voicemail. I pulled out my phone. Scrolled to the voicemail. and pressed play. Celeste. This is Margaret Montgomery, Liam's mother. I'm not going to waste your time with pleasantries. I know what my son did to you. I know it was wrong. But he's still my son. And I'm asking you, begging you, to reconsider pressing charges. He's sick. He needs help, not prison. Please, call me. Detective Cross listened with her eyes closed. When the message ended, she opened them and looked at me. She didn't threaten you. No. She didn't offer you money. No. She just asked you to reconsider. Yes. Detective Cross sighed. That's going to be a problem. Why? Because it makes her sympathetic. Because when she takes the stand, and she will take the stand, she's going to cry and say she was just a worried mother trying to protect her son. And the jury is going to feel sorry for her. I don't care if the jury feels sorry for her. I care about justice. Justice isn't about what you care about. It's about what the jury believes. Detective Cross handed me back my phone. Don't delete that voicemail. We might need it. For what? I don't know yet. But we might. She stayed for another hour, going over logistics, the trial date, the witness list, the evidence they'd managed to gather. Liam's phone had been seized as part of the investigation, and the forensic team had found dozens of text messages that corroborated my story. Messages where Liam admitted to hitting me. Messages where Tinsley encouraged him to put me in my place. Messages where Liam's friends joked about my bruises and called me dramatic. Every message was another nail in his coffin. The defense is going to argue that you provoked him, Detective Cross said as she gathered her things to leave. They're going to say you knew what would happen when you went to that parking lot. They're going to say you wanted him to hit you so you could record it. I did want him to hit me. Detective Cross froze. What? I wanted him to hit me. I needed the evidence. I knew what he was capable of. I knew he wouldn't be able to stop himself. I met her eyes. Does that make me complicit? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat back down. Celeste, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Her voice was low. Serious. You are not complicit in your own abuse. You are not responsible for what Liam did to you. It doesn't matter if you knew it was coming. It doesn't matter if you recorded it. He made the choice to hit you. He made the choice to keep hitting you. You didn't force his hand. But I asked him to hit me again. After he'd already hit you. After he'd already committed a crime. She shook her head. Self-defense isn't just about fighting back. It's about survival. And sometimes survival means doing things that don't make sense to people who've never been in your position. I looked down at my hands. The scars from the gravel were still visible. Small, white lines across my palms. Fading, but not gone. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. I said, You are. How do you know? Detective Cross reached across the space between us and took my hand. Her grip was firm. Steady. Because I've been doing this job for 15 years. She said, I've seen hundreds of domestic violence cases. I've watched victims lie to protect their abusers. I've watched abusers walk free because their victims were too scared to tell the truth. And I've watched a handful of victims, a very small handful, stand up and fight back. She squeezed my hand. You're one of the fighters, Celeste. And fighters don't ask themselves if they're doing the right thing. They just do it. What if I'm wrong? Then you're wrong. But at least you'll know you tried. She left. Jasmine crawled out of bed and sat down next to me. You okay? She asked. I don't know. You want to talk about it? No. Okay. She put her arm around my shoulders. I'm here if you change your mind. I leaned into her. The warmth of her body. The steady rhythm of her breathing. It grounded me. Reminded me that I wasn't alone. That I didn't have to do this by myself. Thank you, I said. For what? For staying. She kissed the top of my head. Where else would I go? The trial was scheduled to begin on November 15th. That gave me 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks of meetings with ADHN. 6 weeks of therapy sessions. 6 weeks of trying to heal a body that refused to forget what had been done to it. The physical healing was slow. The orbital fracture was stable. But my vision was still blurry. The retina was reattached. But my eye ached constantly. A dull, throbbing pain that never quite went away. The hematoma had resolved. But I still had headaches. Migraines. The neurologist called them. They came without warning, blinding me with pain, leaving me curled up in bed with the lights off and a cold compress over my face. The emotional healing was slower. I started seeing a therapist twice a week. A woman named Dr. Evelyn Park, who specialized in trauma and domestic violence. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice and a way of asking questions that made me want to tell her everything. "Tell me about your childhood," she said at our first session. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Where did you grow up? Who raised you?" I told her. Not everything. I wasn't ready for everything. But enough. The foster homes. The group homes. The families who took me in and gave me back. One after another. Like I was a toy they'd gotten tired of playing with. "How many placements did you have?" Dr. Park asked. 12. Between the ages of 4 and 18. That's a lot of moves. I got used to it. Did you? She tilted her head. Or did you just learn to stop getting attached? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew. "Celeste, the way you responded to Liam's abuse. The way you stayed with him even when he hurt you. That's not a character flaw. That's a survival mechanism. You learned, very early on, that people who are supposed to love you will hurt you. And you learned that the only way to survive that hurt is to convince yourself that you deserve it." I don't think I deserved it. No, she agreed. But you stayed. Even when you knew it was wrong. Even when you knew it would happen again. You stayed because somewhere, deep down, you believed that this was what love looked like. I closed my eyes. The memories washed over me. Liam's hands on my face. His voice in my ear. The way he'd hold me after and tell me he was sorry. The way I'd believed him. Every single time. "I don't want to be that person anymore," I whispered. "Then don't be." Dr. Park leaned forward. "You're not the same girl who walked into that parking lot. You're not the same girl who let him hit her. You're someone new. Someone stronger. And that person, that new Celeste, she doesn't have to be defined by what happened to her." "Then what does she have to be defined by?" Dr. Park smiled. "That's up to her." I thought about that a lot over the next few weeks. Who was the new Celeste? What did she want? What did she believe? What kind of future was she building for herself? The answers didn't come easily. But slowly, piece by piece, they started to take shape. The new Celeste wasn't afraid to be alone. The new Celeste didn't need anyone's approval. The new Celeste was going to law school. That last one surprised me. I'd never thought about law school before. Not in this timeline. Not in the original. I'd been a sociology major because I didn't know what else to do with my life. I drifted from class to class, semester to semester, waiting for something to click. But now, sitting in Dr. Park's office, I realized what I wanted. I wanted to help people like me. I wanted to be the person I'd needed when I was lying in that hospital bed with a fractured face and a brain bleed. The person who believed me. The person who fought for me. The person who didn't look away. "I'm going to be a prosecutor," I told Jasmine that night. She looked up from her laptop. "What?" "I'm going to law school. I'm going to be a prosecutor. I'm going to put people like Liam in prison for the rest of their lives." Jasmine stared at me for a long moment. Then she started to laugh. "What?" I said. "What's funny?" "Nothing. It's just..." She shook her head. "You spent the last 2 years telling me you didn't know what you wanted to do with your life. And now, after everything that's happened, you finally figured it out. I guess trauma is a good motivator." "Don't say that." She set down her laptop. Don't make it sound like what happened to you is a good thing. It wasn't. Liam beating you wasn't a gift. It wasn't a lesson. It was violence. Pure and simple. I know. But you're taking that violence and turning it into something else. Something that matters. She smiled. That's not trauma being a good motivator. That's you being strong. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it. You just have to be it. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't say anything. I just sat there, next to my best friend, and let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay. The weeks passed. The trial date grew closer. ADHN called me every few days with updates. Liam's lawyers had filed a motion to suppress the recording, arguing that it violated Massachusetts wiretapping laws. The judge denied it. They'd filed a motion to exclude my medical records, arguing that they were prejudicial. The judge denied that too. They'd filed a motion to continue the trial, arguing that they needed more time to prepare. The judge denied it. This judge is not messing around. ADHN told me over the phone. Pendergast might be old and conservative, but he's also fair. He's not letting Liam's lawyers drag this out. That's good. Right. It's good. It means we're going to trial on schedule. It means Liam is going to have to face a jury sooner rather than later. She paused. It also means you need to be ready. They're going to call you to the stand on the second day, maybe the third. I'm ready. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She laughed. You remind me of myself when I was your age. Cocky. Certain. Convinced you could take on the world and win. I'm not cocky. I'm prepared. There's a difference. I smiled. Apparently not. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible question they might ask me. Liam's lawyers were going to try to break me. They were going to bring up my past. They were going to call me crazy. They were going to make me sound like a liar, a manipulator, a girl who'd fabricated an entire story to ruin a good man's life. But I had the evidence. I had the recording. I had the medical reports. I had the notebook. And I had something else, too. Something I hadn't had in the original timeline. I had myself. Not the broken, desperate girl who'd let Liam Montgomery destroy her. Not the shell of a person who'd spent years begging for love from someone who only knew how to hurt. But someone new. Someone whole. Someone who'd crawled through hell and come out the other side with her eyes open. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Drop the charges or we'll make you wish you had. I deleted the message. I didn't report it. I didn't respond. I just closed my eyes and waited for morning. The trial began on a Monday. The courthouse was old. One of those granite buildings from the 1800s, with high ceilings and marble floors and the smell of something old and sad. I'd been here before. In the original timeline. I'd sat in the same hallway, on the same wooden bench, waiting for my name to be called. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't alone. Jasmine sat next to me, her hand in mine. Dr. Park sat on my other side, a quiet presence that made me feel less like I was drowning. Detective Cross was there too, standing by the door, her eyes scanning the crowd like she was looking for threats. ADHN walked up to us, her briefcase in her hand, her face set in the kind of expression that meant business. It's time, she said. I stood up. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding. My left eye was throbbing. The same dull ache that had been with me for months. A reminder of everything I'd survived. Are you ready? ADHN asked. I thought about the parking lot, the slaps, the blood, the recording. I thought about the notebook, the text messages, the bruises that had finally faded but would never fully disappear. I thought about the new Celeste, the one who wasn't afraid, the one who didn't need anyone's approval, the one who was going to be a prosecutor and put monsters like Liam in cages. I'm ready, I said. The courtroom was packed. I'd expected it to be empty. Maybe a few reporters. Maybe Liam's family. Maybe some curious onlookers. But the gallery was full. Students from the university. Professors. Local news crews. People I'd never seen before. People who'd come because they wanted to watch the show. Liam sat at the defense table, between his two lawyers. He looked different than I remembered. Thinner. Paler. His sandy hair grown out and unkempt. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my tuition. His hands were cuffed together in front of him, but you could barely see the metal underneath the expensive fabric. When I walked in, he looked up. Our eyes met. In the original timeline. I'd looked away. I'd been too scared. Too broken. Too ashamed to hold his gaze. I'd let him stare me down while I sat in the witness box and cried. Not this time. I held his gaze. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. Looked at the boy who'd broken my face. Who'd given me a brain bleed. Who'd spent 6 months convincing me that I deserved everything he did to me. And I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Liam's face went pale. He looked away first. Good. ADHN led me to the witness box. I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. Then I sat down. The judge, Pendergast, with his watery blue eyes and his condescending smile, looked down at me from behind the bench. Miss Hayes, he said, you understand that you are under oath. I do. You understand that anything you say here today can be used in a court of law. I do. He nodded. Then let's begin. ADHN approached the witness box. Her heels clicked against the floor. Her face was calm. Professional. But I could see the fire in her eyes. Miss Hayes, she said, can you tell the jury how you met Liam Montgomery? I took a deep breath. And I began. We met at a party. I said, September of last year. He bought me a drink. He told me I was beautiful. He made me feel like I was the only person in the room. ADHN nodded. And how did the relationship progress? Fast. He wanted to spend every minute together. He texted me constantly. He told me he loved me within 2 weeks. Did that feel good? At first. I paused. But then it started to feel controlling. He didn't like it when I hung out with my friends. He didn't like it when I went places without him. He said he just missed me. He said he just loved me so much he couldn't stand to be apart. Did he ever get angry when you did something he didn't like? Yes. Can you give us an example? I took a breath. The first time he hit me was in his dorm room. We'd been together about 6 months. I told him I was thinking about studying abroad junior year. He didn't want me to go. He said I was trying to leave him. That I didn't love him. That I was just like everyone else who'd ever abandoned him. Did you actually say you were going to study abroad? No. I just mentioned that I was thinking about it. I hadn't even applied. What happened next? He slapped me across the face. Hard. I fell off the bed and hit my head on the nightstand. The jury shifted. A few of them looked at Liam. He was staring at the table, his face expressionless. What did you do after he slapped you? I cried. I asked him why he did it. He started crying too. He said he was sorry. He said he loved me so much and he just lost control. He promised it would never happen again. But it did happen again. Yes. How many times? I looked at the jury. 12 strangers. 12 people who would decide whether Liam Montgomery went to prison or walked free. 40. 7 times. I said. Over the next 6 months. 40. 7 times he put his hands on me. 40. 7 times he apologized. 40. 7 times I believed him. The courtroom was silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. ADHN walked to the prosecution table and picked up a large binder. Miss Hayes, I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit A. Can you tell the jury what this is? She handed me the binder. I opened it to the first page. "This is my notebook," I said. I started keeping it after the third time he hit me. I wrote down the date of each incident. What happened? Where it happened? What injuries I had? And why did you start keeping this notebook? Because I thought if I could prove it was happening, maybe I could make him stop. But he didn't stop. No. I turned to a page near the middle. On June 15th. He pushed me down a flight of stairs at his fraternity house. I broke my wrist. He told everyone I was drunk. Were you drunk? No. I don't drink. Did anyone see you fall? No. But people saw me after. They saw the bruises. They saw the cast on my wrist. They asked what happened. I told them I fell. Why did you lie? Because Liam told me to. He said if I told anyone the truth, he'd leave me. He said no one would believe me anyway. He said I was crazy, that I made things up, that I was trying to ruin his life. ADHN walked back to the prosecution table and picked up another exhibit. Your Honor, I'd like to play People's Exhibit B for the jury. Judge Pendergast nodded. You may proceed. The courtroom lights dimmed. A large screen on the wall lit up. And then Liam's voice filled the room. You let me show her you're sorry. You let me show her you know your place. My voice. Steady and quiet. Okay. The slap. Loud. Brutal. The sound echoed off the walls. Several jurors flinched. Do it again. Another slap. Harder. The sound of my body hitting the ground. Again. A third slap. Then Liam's voice. Cold and angry. Get up. Silence. I said get up. More silence. Then my voice. Strained. Thank you. What? Thank you for showing me who you really are. I'll be sure to tell the police. The recording ended. The lights came back up. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. ADHN turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the defendant, Liam Montgomery, telling the witness to let him hit her. You heard the sound of him striking her 3 times. You heard her hit the ground. And you heard the defendant say nothing. Nothing at all. To deny that he was the one doing the hitting. She walked back to the witness box. Miss Hayes, after this recording was made, what happened? I went to the hospital. They did a CT scan. They found 3 fractures in my orbital bone, a detached retina, and a subdural hematoma. Can you explain to the jury what a subdural hematoma is? Bleeding between my brain and my skull. It can cause brain damage. It can kill you. Did you need surgery? Yes. Orbital reconstruction, retinal reattachment, and a drain to remove the blood from around my brain. Did the surgery work? Partially. I touched my left eye. I have permanent vision loss in this eye. My depth perception is compromised. I'll have chronic pain and headaches for the rest of my life. ADHN stood in front of the jury. Miss Hayes, why did you go to that parking lot? Why didn't you just stay home? I looked at the jury. 12 strangers. 12 people who were about to decide my fate. Because I needed the evidence. I said, I'd been documenting his abuse for months. I had the notebook. I had the text messages. But I didn't have proof. I didn't have anything that would hold up in court. So when he texted me and told me to come to the lot, I went. I put my phone in my pocket. And I recorded everything. So you went to the parking lot knowing he might hurt you? Yes. And you let him hit you? Yes. Why? Because I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of making excuses for someone who didn't deserve them. I looked at Liam. He was staring at me now. His face hard. His jaw tight. I decided that I'd rather be broken and free than whole and his. The jury was silent. The gallery was silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. ADHN smiled. It was a small smile. Barely there. But I saw it. No further questions. She said, She walked back to the prosecution table and sat down. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the defense table stirred. Charles Harrington, Liam's lead attorney, stood up. He was tall and thin, with silver hair and the kind of face that belonged on a magazine cover. He'd been doing this for 30 years. He'd defended murderers, rapists, drug lords. He'd gotten them off, more often than not. He walked toward the witness box like he owned the room. "Miss Hayes," he said, "that was quite a story." "It wasn't a story. It was the truth." "Was it?" He raised an eyebrow. "Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you went to that parking lot with a recording device, intentionally provoked my client, and then stood by while he reacted exactly the way you wanted him to." "I didn't provoke him. You asked him to hit you again, after he'd already hit me. But you still asked." He leaned against the jury box, casual, relaxed. "In fact, you asked him 3 times. Do it again." "Again." "Those were your words, weren't they?" "Yes." "So you admit that you encouraged my client to hit you." "I admit that I didn't stop him. I admit that I wanted him to keep going so I could get more evidence." I met his eyes, but I didn't make him hit me. He made that choice, all by himself. Harrington smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's talk about your history. Miss Hayes, you were in foster care, weren't you?" "Yes." "How many placements?" 12. "That's a lot of moves. A lot of people who didn't want you." Objection. ADHN called out. Relevance. Judge Pendergast looked at Harrington. "Counselor, I'm establishing a pattern, Your Honor. A pattern of instability. A pattern of attention seeking behavior. A pattern of blaming others for her own problems." Overruled. "You may continue." Harrington turned back to me. "Miss Hayes, were you diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when you were 14? "Temporarily. The diagnosis was later overturned by 2 independent psychiatrists. But you were diagnosed." "That's a fact." "The diagnosis was wrong. According to you." He walked toward the witness box. "According to the doctors who evaluated you as a favor to your lawyers." Objection. ADHN called out again, badgering the witness. Sustained. Judge Pendergast said. "Watch yourself, Counselor." Harrington held up his hands in mock surrender. "My apologies, Your Honor. Let me rephrase." He turned back to me. "Miss Hayes, isn't it true that you have a history of unstable relationships? Of clinginess? Of jealousy? Of accusing your partners of things they didn't do?" "No. Didn't you accuse your previous boyfriend of cheating on you? Before Liam?" "No. Didn't you tell your friends that he hit you?" "The previous boyfriend?" "No. Because he never hit me." "But you told them he did." "No. I didn't." Harrington pulled out a piece of paper. "I have a statement here from a woman named Sarah Jenkins. She says you told her that your ex-boyfriend, Marcus Webb, had slapped you during an argument. Is she lying?" I blinked. I remembered Sarah Jenkins, a girl I'd lived with in my second foster home. A girl who'd made up stories about me because she was jealous that I'd been chosen for a special program at school. "Sarah Jenkins is a liar," I said. "She's been lying about me since we were 15. So you're calling her a liar?" "I'm saying she's not a credible witness. She has a history of fabricating stories to make herself look better." Harrington smiled. "Interesting. Because she says the same thing about you." He walked back to the defense table and picked up another piece of paper. "Miss Hayes, isn't it true that you were the one who was jealous in your relationship with Liam? That you constantly accused him of cheating, even when he wasn't?" "He was cheating with Tinsley Montgomery." "Can you prove that?" "I have text messages." "You have text messages that you claim are from him. But we have no way of verifying that." "Do we?" "Because you deleted the originals." "I didn't delete them." They're on my phone. Your phone, which you've had exclusive access to. A phone that you could have tampered with at any time. I didn't tamper with anything. Harrington set down the paper. Miss Hayes, isn't it possible, just possible, that you went in that parking lot because you wanted to hurt Liam? Because you were angry that he was spending time with his ex? Because you couldn't stand the idea of him being happy without you? No. Then why did you record him? Why did you bring your phone to a parking lot at night, with the recording app already open? Because I knew he might hurt me, and I wanted proof. Or because you wanted to provoke him. You wanted to get a reaction. You wanted to film him so you could ruin his life. I wanted to survive. Harrington leaned in close. His voice dropped to a whisper. Did you love him? Miss Hayes. I didn't answer. Did you love Liam Montgomery? Yes, I said quietly. I loved him. Even after everything he did to me. I loved him. Then why are you doing this? Why are you trying to send the man you love to prison? I looked at Liam. He was watching me, his eyes unreadable. Because love isn't supposed to hurt. I said, love isn't supposed to leave bruises. Love isn't supposed to make you afraid to go home at night. I turned back to Harrington. I loved him. But love isn't enough. Not when the person you love is breaking your bones. The courtroom was silent. Harrington stared at me for a long moment. Then he stepped back. No further questions. He said, ADH, and stood up. Redirect. Your Honor. Proceed. Chin walked to the witness box. Miss Hayes. Mr. Harrington asked you about your history. About foster care. About your diagnosis. Do you believe any of that information is relevant to what happened in that parking lot? No. Do you believe it makes you less credible? No. Do you believe it justifies what Liam did to you? No. Chin nodded. Thank you. No further questions. Judge Pendergast looked at me. You may step down. Miss Hayes. I stood up. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I walked out of the witness box with my head high and my shoulders back. Jasmine was waiting for me in the gallery. She grabbed my hand as I sat down. You did amazing, she whispered. I don't feel amazing. You were. Trust me. The trial continued for 3 more days. Jasmine testified. She told the jury about the bruises she'd seen, the excuses I'd made, the nights she'd held me while I cried. She told them about the logs she'd kept, the incidents she'd witnessed, the way Liam would text me 50 times in an hour if I didn't respond fast enough. Detective Cross testified. She told the jury about the investigation, the evidence, the way Liam had tried to intimidate me into dropping the charges. The doctors testified. Dr. Patel, with his shaking hands and his wire-rimmed glasses, told the jury about the fractures, the hematoma, the force required to cause my injuries. Dr. Hartman told them about the surgery, the titanium mesh, the permanent vision loss. Dr. Okonkwo told them about the brain bleed, the risk of long-term damage, the nightmares that would probably never go away. And then, on the 4th day, Liam took the stand. He was good. I had to give him that. He was charming and self-deprecating and just humble enough to seem genuine. He apologized for hitting me, but said it was an accident. He admitted to losing his temper, but said I'd provoked him. He took responsibility for his actions, but blamed Tinsley, blamed the alcohol, blamed the stress of school. I'm not a monster, he said, looking at the jury with those big blue eyes. I made a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I'm not a monster. ADH and Cross examined him for 2 hours. She played the recording again. She showed him the photographs of my face. She read aloud from my notebook, from the text messages, from the witness statements. You said you lost your temper, Mr. Montgomery. But you hit her 3 times. You had time to stop. You had time to think. Why didn't you? I don't know. You said she provoked you. But she was just standing there. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't threatening you. She was just there. How is that provocation? I don't know. You said you're not a monster. But you gave a woman a brain bleed. You fractured her face in 3 places. You permanently damaged her vision. What do you call that? If not monstrous. Liam didn't answer. I asked you a question. Mr. Montgomery. I don't know. Thank you. ADHN turned to the jury. No further questions. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Jasmine and I sat in the gallery, holding hands, watching the clock. Dr. Park sat on my other side, her hand on my shoulder. Detective Cross stood by the door, her arms crossed, her face tense. At 3:47 p.m., the jury filed back in. The foreman was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She handed a piece of paper to the bailiff, who handed it to Judge Pendergast. The judge read the verdict. His face didn't change. On the charge of aggravated assault. How do you find? The foreman stood up. Her voice was steady. Guilty. My heart stopped. On the charge of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. To wit. His hands. How do you find? Guilty. On the charge of witness tampering. How do you find? Guilty. On the charge of intimidation of a witness. How do you find? Guilty. 4 counts. For guilty verdicts. Liam's face went white. His lawyers put their hands on his shoulders, trying to calm him down. But he wasn't calm. He was shaking. He was crying. He was looking at me like I'd just destroyed his entire world. Because I had. Judge Pendergast looked down at Liam. Mr. Montgomery, you have been convicted of serious crimes. Crimes that have permanently altered the life of another human being. I will sentence you at a later date. But I want to be clear about something. He paused. You are not a victim here. You are not misunderstood. You are not the product of a jealous girlfriend's imagination. You are an abuser. And abusers belong in prison. He banged his gavel. Court adjourned. The gallery erupted in noise. Reporters rushed for the doors. People were crying, shouting, hugging. Jasmine threw her arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder. I didn't cry. I just sat there, in the middle of the chaos, and stared at Liam as the bailiffs led him away in handcuffs. He looked back at me. In the original timeline, I'd cried. I'd felt sorry for him. I'd wondered if I'd done the right thing. Not this time. This time. I smiled. And Liam Montgomery, the boy who'd broken my face and my spirit and my heart, looked away first. The takedown was complete. But the reckoning wasn't over yet. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after the verdict. 3 weeks of waiting. 3 weeks of nightmares. 3 weeks of reporters calling my phone at all hours, asking for comments, asking for interviews, asking for anything they could use to sell more papers. I didn't give them anything. ADHN had warned me to stay quiet. The trial is over. But the case isn't closed. Liam's lawyers are going to appeal. They're going to try to get the verdict thrown out. Anything you say to the press can and will be used against you. So I said nothing. I went to class. I went to therapy. I went to bed at 9 o'clock and stared at the ceiling until 3 in the morning, waiting for sleep that never came. Jasmine stayed with me. She slept in my bed some nights, holding my hand, whispering that I was safe, that he couldn't hurt me anymore. I wanted to believe her. But every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that parking lot. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel his hand on my face. Healing isn't linear. Dr. Park told me during one of our sessions, you're not going to wake up one day and feel fine. The nightmares might never go away completely, but they'll get less frequent, less intense. Eventually, they'll just be memories. What if I don't want them to be memories? I asked. What if I want to forget? You won't forget. And that's okay. You don't have to forget to heal. I thought about that a lot over the next few weeks. The idea that I could carry what happened to me without being defined by it. That I could remember without reliving. That I could move forward without leaving everything behind. It was a nice thought. Whether it was true, that remained to be seen. Tinsley's trial came first. She'd cut a deal with the prosecution. Testify against Liam in exchange for a reduced sentence. But after Liam was convicted, ADHN argued that the deal was no longer necessary. Tinsley had perjured herself during Liam's trial, claiming she didn't remember telling him to hit me. But the recording proved otherwise. You encouraged him, ADHN said during Tinsley's sentencing hearing. You laughed while he beat her. You told him to do it again. And then you lied about it under oath. Tinsley cried. She cried the way she always cried. Big, theatrical tears that made her look like a wounded animal. She talked about how sorry she was. How she'd been manipulated by Liam. How she'd been afraid of him too. The judge didn't buy it. Miss Montgomery, you are not a victim here. You are an enabler. You watched a woman be brutalized, and you did nothing to stop it. Worse, you encouraged it. The judge leaned forward. I'm sentencing you to 18 months in state prison, to be followed by 3 years of probation. You will also be required to complete 100 hours of community service focused on domestic violence awareness. Tinsley screamed. She screamed the way she'd screamed when they arrested her. High, pitched, hysterical, completely out of control. Her father rushed to her side, his face red with rage, his eyes fixed on me like I was the devil. You did this, he hissed as the bailiffs led his daughter away. You ruined her life. No, I said. She ruined her own life. I just made sure everyone saw it. He lunged at me. Detective Cross stepped between us, her hand on her gun. Back off, she said, or I'll add assault to your daughter's charges. He backed off, but he didn't stop staring at me, even as he walked out of the courtroom, even as the doors closed behind him. I could feel his eyes on my back. Are you okay? Jasmine asked. I'm fine. You're not fine. I'm fine, I said again. And this time, I almost believed it. Liam's sentencing hearing was held on a Friday. The courtroom was packed again. Reporters, students, professors, people who'd come to watch the final act of a tragedy that had captivated the whole campus. Liam sat at the defense table, shackled at the wrists and ankles. He looked terrible. Thin, pale, his eyes hollow. The past few weeks had not been kind to him. His father had hired the best lawyers money could buy. But even they couldn't undo the damage of the recording. The medical evidence. The testimony of half a dozen witnesses. ADHN stood before the judge, a thick binder in her hands. Your Honor, the prosecution is seeking the maximum sentence. 25 years in state prison for aggravated assault. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Witness tampering. And intimidation of a witness. We believe this sentence is justified given the severity of the defendant's actions and the lasting harm he has caused to the victim. She opened the binder. We have submitted statements from Miss Hayes's doctors, her therapist, her professors, and her friends. We have submitted photographs of her injuries. We have submitted the recording of the assault. And we have submitted a victim impact statement from Miss Hayes herself. Judge Pendergast looked at me. Miss Hayes, would you like to read your statement? I stood up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. I walked to the front of the courtroom, turned to face Liam, and pulled out a piece of paper. But I didn't read from it. I'd written a statement. A long, carefully crafted statement about pain and healing and justice. But standing there, looking at the boy who'd broken me, I realized I didn't need it. I knew what I wanted to say. Liam, I began. I loved you. I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. And you used that love to destroy me. The courtroom was silent. You hit me for the first time 6 months into our relationship. I was 20 years old. I'd never been hit before. I didn't know what to do. So I stayed. I stayed because you cried. I stayed because you apologized. I stayed because you told me it would never happen again. I took a breath. But it did happen again. 46 more times. Each time. You apologized. Each time. I believed you. Each time. I told myself that the next time would be different. That you would change. That you loved me enough to stop. Liam's face was pale. His hands were clenched on the table. After you hit me in that parking lot, I went to the hospital. The doctors told me I had a brain bleed. They told me I might lose my eye. They told me I was lucky to be alive. I touched my left eye. I didn't feel lucky. I felt broken. I felt like I'd failed. Like I should have seen it coming. Like I should have left sooner. But I didn't leave. I stayed. And I kept staying. Even after you put me in the hospital. Even after you threatened to kill me. Even after you told me that no one would ever love me the way you did. I looked at the jury. They were crying. Most of them. I'm not here to ask for revenge. I'm not here to ask for pity. I'm here to ask for justice. Not for me. For every girl who's ever been told that she deserved it. For every woman who's ever been too scared to leave. For everyone who's ever been made to feel like their pain didn't matter. I turned back to Liam. You broke my face. You gave me a brain bleed. You took my vision in one eye. You gave me nightmares that will probably never go away. You stole months of my life. Months I'll never get back. But you didn't break me. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. You tried. You tried so hard. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm still fighting. I folded my paper and put it in my pocket. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Liam. I'm not afraid of your father. I'm not afraid of your lawyers. I'm not afraid of anyone who tries to tell me that what happened was my fault. Because it wasn't. It was yours. Every bruise. Every fracture. Every nightmare. Yours. I walked back to my seat and sat down. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear myself breathe. Judge Pendergast looked at Liam. Mr. Montgomery, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Liam stood up. His lawyers tried to pull him back down, but he shook them off. Celeste, he said, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I loved you. I still love you. I looked at him. His eyes were wet. His voice was cracked. But I didn't feel sorry for him. That's the problem. Liam, I said, you think love is an excuse. You think love means you get to hurt people and they have to forgive you. But love isn't supposed to hurt. Love isn't supposed to leave bruises. Love isn't supposed to make you afraid to go home. I know. I know that now. And I'm going to get help. I'm going to change. People like you don't change. I said, not really. You just get better at hiding it. His face crumpled. He looked at the judge. Your Honor. Please. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll take medication. I'll never touch her again. Just please. Don't send me away. I'm not a monster. Judge Pendergast looked down at him. Mr. Montgomery, you have been convicted of aggravated assault. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Witness tampering. And intimidation of a witness. These are serious crimes. Crimes that have permanently altered the life of another human being. He paused. I have reviewed the evidence. I have listened to the testimony. I have read the victim impact statement. And I have come to a conclusion. Liam Montgomery, you are not a victim. You are not misunderstood. You are not the product of a jealous girlfriend's imagination. You are an abuser. And abusers belong in prison. He picked up his gavel. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will have no contact with the victim, directly or indirectly, for the duration of your sentence and release. You will be required to register as a violent offender, and you will spend every single day of those 25 years thinking about what you did to her. He banged his gavel. Court adjourned. Liam screamed. He screamed and thrashed and fought as the bailiffs grabbed him. His father rushed toward the defense table, his face twisted with rage. His mother was crying. Not for me. Not for the daughter. In a law she'd never have. But for her son. Her precious son who could do no wrong. 25 years. Liam screamed. 25 years. For a few slaps. She's lying. She's a liar. I didn't do anything. The bailiffs dragged him out of the courtroom. His screams echoed down the hallway, fading slowly until there was nothing but silence. Jasmine put her arms around me. You did it, she whispered. We did it. She held me tighter. What happens now? I looked at the empty courtroom, at the bench where Judge Pendergast had sat, at the witness box where I'd told the truth, at the defense table where Liam's lawyers were packing up their things. Now I heal, I said. Now I go to law school. Now I become the person I was always meant to be. And Liam. I thought about him, about the boy I'd loved, about the monster he'd become. Liam doesn't get to be part of my story anymore. He made his choice. Now he has to live with it. We walked out of the courtroom together. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air was cold. The wind was sharp. But for the first time in months, I felt warm. That night, I went back to my dorm room. I packed up my notebook, the one with all the dates, all the incidents, all the evidence, and put it in a box under my bed. I didn't need it anymore. The trial was over. Liam was in prison. Tinsley was in prison. The people who'd hurt me were locked away. And I was free. But freedom, I was learning, was different than I expected. It wasn't a feeling. It wasn't a destination. It was a choice. A choice to keep going. A choice to keep fighting. A choice to believe that the world could be better. Even after everything I'd seen. Jasmine knocked on my door. Hey, she said. You okay? I'm okay. You want to talk? No. You want to watch a movie? I smiled. Yeah, I'd like that. She climbed into my bed with a laptop and a bag of popcorn. We watched a stupid romantic comedy. The kind where the girl gets the guy and everything works out in the end. It wasn't realistic. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that I was here. I was alive. I was surrounded by people who loved me. And Liam Montgomery was in a concrete cell, staring at a wall, counting down the days until he could see the sun again. 25 years. 9,120. 5 days. I hoped he counted every single one. 3 years later. The law library at Boston College was quiet this time of night. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional rustle of pages turning. I sat at my usual table, surrounded by casebooks and highlighters and empty coffee cups, and tried to focus on the reading for my criminal procedure class. But my mind kept drifting. Tomorrow was the anniversary. 3 years since the night in the parking lot. 3 years since Liam's hand connected with my face for the last time. 3 years since I'd walked into that hospital with a fractured orbit and a brain bleed and walked out with a new life. 3 years. It felt like forever and no time at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Jasmine. You coming home tonight or are you going to sleep in the library again? Me. Library. Exam tomorrow. Jasmine. You're going to give yourself an ulcer. Me. Worth it. Jasmine. At least eat something. I left a sandwich in the fridge. Me. You're the best. Jasmine. I know. I set down my phone and tried to go back to my reading. But the words blurred together. Meaningless. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. All I could see was his face. 3 years. And still. Some nights. The memories came. I closed my casebook and packed up my bag. The walk back to my apartment was cold. Late November in Boston. The kind of cold that seeped into your bones and stayed there. The streets were empty. The city was quiet. I liked it that way. When I got home, the apartment was dark. Jasmine was already asleep. Her door closed. Her light off. I hung up my coat, kicked off my shoes, and walked to my room. There was an envelope on my pillow. I froze. The envelope was thick. Cream. Colored. Expensive. My name was written on the front in careful handwriting. Handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter. 8 pages. The first paragraph read, "Dear Celeste, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you probably threw this letter away the second you saw my name. But I need you to read this. I need you to know that I've changed. I've been in therapy for 2 years now. I've been taking medication. I've been working with a counselor who specializes in domestic abusers. I've learned things about myself that I didn't want to know. Things about my childhood, about my parents, about the anger that's been living inside me since I was a kid. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to understand what I did to you. I'm trying to become someone who deserves to live in the world." I set down the letter. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. The room felt too small, too hot, too close. Liam Montgomery was in prison. 25 years. He wasn't supposed to be writing me letters. He wasn't supposed to be in my apartment, on my pillow, in my head. But here he was. I picked up the letter again. I read the next paragraph. "I think about that night every day. I think about your face. The way you looked at me. The way you said thank you after I hit you. I didn't understand it then. I thought you were crazy. I thought you were trying to manipulate me. Now I understand. You weren't crazy. You were brave. Braver than I'd ever been. Braver than I'll ever be. You stood there and let me hit you because you knew it was the only way to stop me. You took the pain because you knew it would set you free. I admire that. I admire you. I'm sorry. Celeste. I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change anything. But I need you to hear it anyway. I'm sorry." I read the letter 3 times. Then I walked to the shredder in the corner of my room. The shredder I'd bought after the trial. The shredder I used for every piece of mail that came from Liam's family. From Tinsley's lawyers. From anyone who wanted to remind me of what I'd survived. And I fed the letter into the blades. The machine whirred. The paper disappeared. I wasn't his therapist. I wasn't his savior. I wasn't anything to him anymore. He'd made his choices. Now he had to live with them. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I made coffee. I ate the sandwich Jasmine had left for me. I took a shower and got dressed and walked to the tea station like it was any other day. But it wasn't any other day. It was the anniversary. I didn't go to class. I called in sick. Something I never did. And took the tea to the courthouse instead. The building was quiet this early. Just the janitors and the security guards and a few lawyers rushing to file last. Minute motions. I walked through the metal detector, showed my ID, and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The courtroom was empty. I stood at the back, looking at the bench where Judge Pendergast had sat, the witness box where I'd told the truth, the defense table where Liam had cried. And I remembered, I remembered the fear, the pain, the way my heart had pounded when they called my name. But I also remembered the relief, the release. The moment the jury foreman said guilty, and I knew. I knew that I was free. You're not supposed to be here. I turned around. Ada Machen stood in the doorway, a cup of coffee in her hand, a stack of files under her arm. She looked the same as she had 3 years ago. Small, fierce, with eyes that missed nothing. I know, I said. I needed to see it. See what? The place where I got my life back. She walked into the courtroom and set down her files on the prosecution table. You know, most victims never want to see this place again. They spend years trying to forget. I don't want to forget. Why not? Because if I forget, I might let it happen again. I walked down the aisle and sat in the gallery. The same seat I'd sat in during the trial. I need to remember what he did to me. Not because I want to hurt, but because I want to help. ADHN sat down next to me. You're really going to law school. 2nd year. Criminal law concentration. Good. She nodded. We need more prosecutors who understand what it's like to be on the other side. Is that an offer? It's an observation. She stood up. But if you want an offer, my office is always looking for good interns, especially ones who aren't afraid of a fight. She walked out of the courtroom, her heels clicking against the floor. I sat there for a long time, alone in the quiet, thinking about everything that had brought me here. The foster homes, the group homes, the families who'd given me back. Liam, the parking lot, the slaps, the trial, the verdict, the sentencing. 3 years. 3 years of healing. 3 years of learning to trust again. 3 years of becoming someone new. And now, law school. A future. A chance to help people like me. I stood up, walked to the front of the courtroom, and touched the witness box. Thank you, I whispered. Then I left. The internship started in January. ADH put me to work immediately, reviewing files, interviewing witnesses, drafting motions. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what they showed on TV. But it was real. It was important. It was exactly where I was supposed to be. The first case they assigned me was a domestic violence case. A girl, 19 years old, bruises on her face and her arms and her ribs. A boyfriend who said he loved her. Who said he was sorry. Who said it would never happen again. I'd heard it all before. Her name was Maria. She was small and quiet and scared. And when she walked into the victim services office, she wouldn't look me in the eye. You're safe here, I said. No one's going to hurt you. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red. Her lip was split. He said he'd kill me if I told anyone. He can't kill you if he's in prison. You don't know him. He's crazy. He'll find a way. Let me tell you something. I leaned forward. 3 years ago, I was exactly where you are. My boyfriend beat me so badly I almost lost my eye. He gave me a brain bleed. He fractured my face in 3 places. Maria's eyes widened. I thought I was alone. I thought no one would believe me. I thought I deserved it. I paused. I was wrong. How did you get out? I smiled. I fought back. Maria was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. Will you help me? I looked at her bruises, at her fear, at the hope flickering behind her eyes. Yeah, I said. I'll help you. We put her boyfriend away 6 months later. 12 years. No parole. Maria cried when the verdict was read. I held her hand and told her she was brave. I'm not brave, she said. Yes, you are. You're the bravest person I know. She looked at me. Braver than you. I thought about the parking lot, the recording, the slaps. Different. I said. Not braver. Just different. She smiled. It was the first time I'd seen her smile. The years passed. I finished law school. I passed the bar. I took a job at the district attorney's office, working alongside ADA Chern. May. She told me to call her now. We'd been through too much for formalities. I prosecuted domestic violence cases. I put abusers in prison. I helped victims find their voices. It was hard. Some days, it was almost impossible. Some days, I went home and cried and wondered if I was making any difference at all. But then I'd get a letter from someone I'd helped. Someone who'd escaped. Someone who'd survived. "Thank you," they wrote. "Because of you, I'm free." And I'd remember why I was doing this. I was doing this for Maria. For Jasmine. For myself. For every girl who'd ever been told she deserved it. I was doing this because someone had to. And because I could. The last time I thought about Liam, I was 32 years old. I was sitting in my office, reviewing a case file, when my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Celeste Hayes. Miss Hayes. This is Sergeant Morrison from the Massachusetts Department of Corrections. I'm calling to inform you that Liam Montgomery has been denied parole." I set down my pen. He's eligible for parole again in 5 years. Given the severity of his crimes and his continued lack of remorse, it's unlikely he'll be granted release at that time either. But I'm required to notify you of each hearing. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate the call." "Of course, ma'am. Have a good day." The line went dead. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone. Liam Montgomery. The boy who'd broken my face. The boy who'd given me nightmares. The boy who'd stolen years of my life. He was still in prison. Still locked away. Still counting down the days until he could see the sun again. And I was here. In my office. In my life. Free. I picked up my pen and went back to work. That night, I went home to Jasmine. She was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, singing along to some song on the radio. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing my old sorority sweatshirt, the one with the hole in the sleeve. "Hey," she said when I walked in. "How was work?" "Busy. How was your day?" "Good. I got a promotion." "Jasmine. That's amazing." She grinned. "I know. Right. Assistant Director of Student Affairs. Fancy title. More money. Same bullshit." I laughed. "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too." She turned back to the stove. "Dinner's almost ready. Go change." I walked to my room. Our room. Now. Jasmine had moved into my apartment 2 years ago. And we'd never looked back. On my nightstand was a photograph. Me and Jasmine. At my law school graduation. She was crying. I was smiling. Next to the photograph was a letter. Not from Liam. I'd stopped getting those years ago. From Maria. "Dear Celeste. I graduated today. I'm the first person in my family to get a college degree. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me that I was worth more than what he made me feel. You saved my life. Love." Maria. I set down the letter and looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't the same girl who'd walked into that parking lot. I wasn't the same girl who'd let Liam Montgomery break her face. I was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who'd crawled through hell and come out the other side with her eyes open. I was a prosecutor. A survivor. A woman who'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to her and turned it into something good. I was Celeste Hayes. And I was free.